another gig canceled over the weekend for this coming weekend.
What was it supposed to be?
St. Thomas More School auction.
Hate to say it, but ain't gonna be the last time.
No, I know. Well, I mean, I've only got 3 more on the books. So, .606 Talk 107.3 FM WBRP off and running on a Monday morning. Good morning, everybody. Brian here with you. Taylor Sharp producing. We call it Mornings with Brian Haldane, and we are ready to get you set to get this work week started off on the right foot. Ready to get another week under your belt from the school front, although it could be the first week under your belt depending on where you go. Southern University taking back in today. We got a lot of ground to cover today. Governor John Bel Edwards held a press conference last Friday, basically saying there's not a whole lot of good news to report when it comes to COVID. This is the week. This week coming up is the week where if we're going to start to see good news, it should start to happen in short order. But we'll have audio from Governor John Bel Edwards' press conference a little bit later on this hour. Condon's going to swing by a little bit later on this hour as well. Rich and I have not gotten to work together that much this summer, if at all. In fact, not at all. Kind of a weird feeling. I mean, last summer we did 2 shows a day for a couple months because of COVID. And then hurricane season was just ridiculous last year, so we ended up working together a lot. It was, I miss my guy. Need to get him down here. Have a little fun. That's coming up at 6:35. In our 7 o'clock hour this morning, Medical Monday, let's talk back to school. Let's talk with Dr. Brett Hutchinson about COVID and kids and what we could be doing to mitigate risk as well as mitigate anxiety, which is kind of a big thing right about now. Then at 7:35, Stephen Waguespack from LABI is going to hop on board. In the 8 o'clock hour, time to talk with Dr. Beau Clark. He is the East Baton Rouge Parish Coroner. COVID deaths are obviously still very much a thing, but you know what? Opioid deaths have not disappeared. So we will be talking with Dr. Clark about both of those things and maybe a few other topics within that time frame as well. Then at 8:35, Senator Bill Cassidy is going to hop on the hotline. His infrastructure package, or the infrastructure package that he's been part of, is now over on the House side. And it seems that the rumors are outpacing the truth when it comes to what's actually in this infrastructure package. How much money goes towards infrastructure versus other things? How much of this is just bloat and pork? How much of this comes back home to Louisiana? We're going to talk about all those things and get some real numbers versus whatever the headlines have been over the weekend. So that's all coming your way. Oh, we'll do a little recap of the Saints game in our next segment as well. So that's a little recap of what's to come throughout the show this morning. I got to start off with two different things, though. Want to spend about a minute on each. Number one, yeah, you heard Marissa Nuzzo's forecast right there. We are keeping our eye on Tropical Storm Fred, though it's looking more and more like Fred is going to impact Pensacola. We likely won't see much, if anything at all. Maybe a shower or two tomorrow morning because of it. Grace, however, might be slightly different, as it's still way too early to predict where Grace is going to go. But as it stands right now, she's supposed to stay south of Cuba and head directly into Texas and northern Mexico. We're going to find out as the week wears on whether or not Grace has the potential of turning north at all and headed through the Gulf, or just going to stay on that path and just continue to zip straight from east to west across the Gulf and hit Mexico. Now, there is another system out there. It is Tropical Depression number 8. I'm guessing if it grows beyond depression, it will become Henri. That's the next name on the list. Henri. Not Henry. Henri. Yeah, I know. This storm is expected to do exactly nothing, by the way. It is supposed to make kind of a U, kind of a semicircle, never even impact land, as it just kind of teeters out in the Atlantic throughout the week this week. So that's the latest on the tropics. Moving over to what's up with COVID and restrictions, mask mandates, and the like. I got slapped in the face with reality on Friday via a meme. I love when this happens. I love when something as simple as a meme can just bring out the truth in something. Forget about everything you believe. Forget about your politics. Forget about your take on COVID or where you are on vaccinations, mask mandates, effectiveness. Forget about where you are on any mitigation measures in your personal life. This meme, I saw on Facebook, and so I had to share it. And then after I shared it, as of this morning, there are, just from my post alone, over 700 more shares. It's a picture of a mother and I'm guessing a daughter. The hair's kind of in between, not too long, not too short.
Can't be too sure nowadays.
No, you can't. You can't. That's the truth. But the top of it reads, "This isn't the mask you wore to school this morning." It's about the kid's about 5 or 6 years old. The top of it reads, "This isn't the mask you wore to school this morning." And underneath it says, "No, this one's way cooler. I traded mine to Taylor, who traded with Hunter." What a dose of reality. I mean, if you're a parent, you know 100% how true that is. How many times has your kid come home with like a different, okay, I'll be honest. I will tell you 2 examples from my personal life. There's been a time where my kid has come home with a different shirt. Now, I'm not talking about like the backup change of clothes to send to daycare in case they have an accident. I'm talking about straight up trading with another kid. Came home with a different shirt, and another time came home in a different pair of underwear. A different pair of underwear. Those aren't the underwear you went to school in. I know, I like Spider-Man better than school buses.
I mean, can you blame them? I do as well.
I'm impressed because the sales pitch you have to talk another kid into wearing school bus underwear. Like, that's solid.
How do you think that conversation started?
I really don't know.
They sit there with story time, and he leans over. He's like, "Hey, man, I'm tired of these Spider-Man underwear. What do you got?"
Yeah, I think that's got to be how it went. Anyway, we see it all the time. Kids trade lunches. Kids trade little doohickeys on their backpack. I don't even know what they're called. And kids are going to trade masks all day long. This right here, this is what reality is. Forget your politics. It's not the mask I sent you to school in. Nope. Traded with Taylor, who traded with Hunter. Great. So we got COVID from 3 families up in here now. Tell you what, let's go ahead and take our first break. Saints played a game, such as it is, on Saturday. They fall to the Ravens. That's not the important thing because it's preseason. They're still 0-0. A lot to be broken down within there, though, so we'll talk about that next on Talk 107.3.
I know you feel that sweat dripping down your forehead right now. It could mean only one thing. Okay. Summertime is here. And the fishing season, at least it will be if you upgrade your boat with
Excuse me.
No, I saw your post Saturday.
Yeah.
I saw it and I looked at it and I was like, this is something I never thought of, but it's totally gonna happen.
It's totally, that is real life. That is how it happens in real life. You're not going to stop kids from being kids.
Right now, no major problems out there. Looking good if you're traveling all the way to New Orleans, 50 minutes on I-10 East through that 60-mile stretch. So everything clear, no issues on the Spillway Bridge. If you're traveling on I-12 overnight, you may have noticed some extra slowdowns, and the drive time bumps up by just a couple of minutes from some overnight road work that's now complete. O'Neill to the split about 7. Let's take you outside and check on I-110.
Morning, Troy. Morning, Clint. Morning, Eric. Eric says Grace should keep on that westerly track unless the forward speed changes. As I understand it, Grace is going to have trouble staying together, but I could be wrong about that. I often am. Are we frozen? Oh, no, there we are. There we are. All right. You got 18, 19, and 20? Okay. .617 Talk 107.3 FM WBRP. All right, sports time. Let's recap what the Saints did Saturday. Admittedly, I only got to watch the first half before. We were at some friend's house having a good time. Got to see Jameis a little bit. Got to see Taysom a little bit. I did not get to see Ian Book, who apparently went 9 of 16 for 126 yards. Decent day for him. Jameis 7 of 12 for 96 yards, and Taysom was 8 of 12 for 81 yards. All three quarterbacks threw an interception. It was a rough night as far as turnovers are concerned. We'll actually get to that in just a second. Saints dropping the first preseason game to the Ravens 17-14. Coach Payton could not be, he's not happy at all with the 6 turnovers.
There's a handful of things we're going to like, but it's just going to be overshadowed, though, with those early mistakes. And, despite how you play in the kicking game or defensively or even in snaps offensively, if that's what happens, it kind of just overshadows all of it,
Quarterbacks played well. I mean, each one had an interception. Taysom Hill and Jameis Winston have yet to separate themselves. I will say this. Jameis was the only one that threw for a touchdown, and the touchdown was a really good look because that was not he checked down from the receiver that had gone in motion. I don't know who it was that went in motion. I think it might have been Montgomery was in motion, and he checked down. It was a good-looking play, to say the least. Of course, they all threw interceptions. Hill's interception came when Ty Montgomery stopped his route.
There's a little confusion there. I was expecting him to stay on the move in that look, and he thought he should settle. And, there's a little pressure and had to get the ball out. And I think those are the things that, it's nice to see in a preseason game. And so we can make sure that between our room and that room that we're all on the same page. And, we'll continue to work through those things.
Michael Thomas was at the game, a sign that the relationship between the wide receiver and the franchise is improving. Thomas was catching passes before the game from Winston, but Thomas had a walking boot on his surgically repaired ankle. Winston says it was great to see him out there.
I think when you have a leader like him riding with us, and his presence is always felt, so it was great to see him, man. I'm trying to toss him as many balls as I can, but it was excellent. That was the highlight of my night.
We will pick back up after Fox Business. About how he stands for the anthem. And Jalen Rose has been pounding this drum that the relationship has been fractured with the team.
Big football guy.
Jalen Rose? Oh, huge. But I got to wonder how much of this was just generated until it became something.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely something. How big of a something?
Well, but what started the something?
Exactly. That's what we don't know.
How much started with Michael Thomas and how much was a result of Michael Thomas maybe watching, NFL Live or whatever?
He's like, you know what? I am mad.
Yeah. Yeah, why haven't they called me? Yeah, nobody bought me flowers. No.
So Schroeder was a free agent. He was with the Lakers last year. They offered to re-sign him. I don't know how many years, but the contract was worth $87 million. Okay, solid contract. Dennis Schroeder said, no, I'm worth more than that. I want a $120 million contract. Lakers said, see ya. Dennis Schroeder just signed with the Celtics, $5.9 million.
That's beautiful.
Dude lost $80 million.
You love to see it. You got to love to see it.
What's the video, like, your dad, the dude in the grocery store? You were not that guy? I'm like,
Right.
That's Dennis Schroeder. You're not a $120 million player, buddy. You're not an $87 million player.
What goes into that, though, is he's that much more replaceable now as well because there isn't that investment. Yeah. I've never understood why. Well, I do. It's ego. Coaches put more value in people they draft higher and pay more. Like, every day is a new day. Your talent that day should be your talent that day. Everything else is sunk cost.
Yep.
And every day you double down on somebody who you've invested in, you're just increasing that sunk cost. Like, why do top 4-round picks get higher looks than 5 through 7 are free agent signees? Well, because everyone else says that they were good, so even if they're not showing up on the field, we're going to continue to give them chances to show up on the field, as opposed to the free agent signee or the 7th-round guy who is just making highlight after highlight after highlight. Yeah, well. Oh, I can't wait to do my live read for Muya this morning. I freaking love this partnership.
I almost went yesterday.
Do what?
I was close to going yesterday.
Oh, well. I mean,
The only thing that stopped me is that I've had 70 burgers this week. I just didn't.
yeah, I'm going to have to tighten up for a little bit.
Yeah. I was like, I just want something different.
You said BRPT?
Yes, sir.
You got it. .624 Talk 107.3 FM WBRP. Mornings with Brian Haldane rolling right along. All right, we're going to move on from the Saints in just a second, though. There were two other notes that I wanted to make quickly. Number one, Tony Jones Jr. Wow, super impressive there. Don't know where he's going to find got to find him a roster spot. But when you look at Alvin Kamara, Latavius Murray, and Devontae Freeman, going to be hard-pressed to find room for him in there. But he showed up on Saturday big time, so good on him. Out wide, hard to assess who's really, really good because you're catching passes from three different guys. Well, two, really. Ian Book coming in the second half. But trying to break down the numbers of who is going to separate themselves, liking Ty Montgomery a little bit, liking Lil Jordan Humphrey a lot, and Marquez Callaway has been garnering a heck of a lot of attention. So next game should give us a lot more than this game did. Outside of that, though, just 6 turnovers makes for a rough night. All right, we're going to talk Louisiana population in 60 seconds. First, I got to tell you about the folks over at Baton Rouge Physical Therapy. How you feeling waking up this morning, huh? Little aches, little pains, little nagging injury when you wake up and, get out of bed and stretch, and then you get, right in the middle of the stretch, that one. Lower back, upper back, neck, maybe your knees, maybe your ankles. Baton Rouge Physical Therapy is here to help. They've been around for 58 years now. They've got 6 locations throughout the greater Baton Rouge area. And look, at Baton Rouge Physical Therapy, your family. It means they're going to take the time to truly understand your unique circumstances. I'm not talking about recovering from a major accident. I'm not talking about recovering from some kind of major injury. I'm talking about those little nagging pains that have built up over the years that keep you from being your best you. They'll sit you down. They'll talk about your anxieties and frustrations that would come along with physical therapy as well. They'll listen to your story. They will make sure you are able to get to the root of your physical limitations or mobility issues and get you back on the path to long-term healing. You can call them at 917-9185, 917-9185, but I'd recommend checking out brptlake.com. Be better than your best. Think physical therapy at brptlake.com. Some population numbers were the topic of a story heading into the weekend. Of note, the depopulation of rural North and Central Louisiana parishes has been coupled with South Louisiana urban and suburban parishes. It's set to shake up the state's congressional map. Demographer Greg Rigamer says Louisiana has about 4,575,000 people right now. The average district will need 776,000 just to be equitable.
So we have about 4,500,000 people. The average district is going to be about 776,000.
Both Julia Letlow's Northeast and Florida Parishes-based district and Mike Johnson's Northwest district will have to get bigger to make up for population losses. In the South, districts are going to be shrinking.
Graves has a district that has about 40,000 too many people in it. Steve Scalise has a district that will have to be trimmed by about 36,000. And then Clay Higgins, about 10,000.
It's going to be interesting to see how the new map shakes out. Troy Carter's New Orleans-based district fell within the margin of error for proper district size. Rigamer says these major differences in population changes between the North and South of Louisiana will give lawmakers a lot to think about when the redistricting battle begins.
So you're going to see some very interesting times in the coming weeks now that these numbers have been released. Now we know specifically what's what.
Congressional and legislative districts are drawn up by the legislature, but can be vetoed by Governor Edwards. That being said, largely we've always considered Baton Rouge to be District 6. Well, I mean, since we shrunk down from 7 down to 6. But honestly, Julia Letlow's district falls within the greater Baton Rouge area, and Troy Carter's district falls within the greater Baton Rouge area. And I got to tell you, I think both of these are going to show a bigger footprint within our area. I mean, not necessarily East Baton Rouge Parish, though a little bit of Troy Carter comes in here. But when you talk about, let's say the Baton Rouge Area Chamber serves a 9-parish area, there's going to be a lot of Julia Letlow in there and a lot of Troy Carter in there as well. So I'm going to make it a point to make sure that we talk with Congressman Garrett Graves every single week on this show. I think it's time to get Julia Letlow and Troy Carter involved a lot more because, well, quite honestly, we're going to be hearing from a lot more. A lot more of us are going to be voting in the races that they are in. So that will definitely be forthcoming as redistricting gets underway. And yes, redistricting will be quite the topic here as we move forward. You want to talk about battles lines being drawn. What we're about to see when it comes to redistricting is the epitome of that. All right, we're going to check in with Richard Condon in our next segment. Can't wait for this. This is going to be fun. Before we do that, though, I got to tell you, Talk 107.3 FM, you download the all-new Talk 107.3 mobile app brought to you by Gregory Ricks and Associates. You can listen live. You can find out what you missed on demand. If you want, you can set an alarm to wake up with this show. Talk 107.3 mobile app brought to you by Gregory Ricks and Associates. That's one way to get hold of the content here on Talk 107.3 FM. Another way is via YouTube. where you will find this show. We're on YouTube right now. If you're watching on YouTube, thank you. Go ahead and click that subscribe button. If you're not, you want to check us out on YouTube, feel free. It's the show is available on YouTube every single day, as is the Jay Cody Show in the afternoon. Just more ways we're trying to get content out there to you. All right, let's get the latest from CBS News. I'm sure, no doubt, headlines from Afghanistan. Then we'll check our own local news, traffic, and weather next on Talk 107.3.
No local news.
What?
It's not up. There it is. Just getting up. You got any questions?
Just one. So, like, how, when you're, doing, like, the YouTube music intro or, like, a bed intro, like, how do you decide? Is there, okay.
Anna emailed you an MP3 that Condon once played when he comes down here. We'll find out when he gets down here. Imagine that. I'd guarantee. Oh. Okay. So much to unpack from this. Grace.
Henri, come
I know.
on. Hurricane, you don't have to be fancy with it.
Split to LA1, I-10 looking good. No issues on the bridge, and coming in from Denham, 9 minutes. Just a reminder, we had some overnight road work right around O'Neill that occurred, and it's already gone, not causing a problem currently. Prairieville to Highland, 5 minutes. Let's check out our live traffic cameras around the Mississippi River Bridge. A wide shot shows no delays. LA1 looking good southbound from Port Allen.
And it fell to the wayside. Sorry, YouTube. I'm responding to an email. Anna sent the thing to his Gmail. Come on in. Oh no, she sent it to his guarantee, which is not active. So, what's it about? Okay. All right.
Oh, you got like 3 minutes. You're good.
Last year we saw historically low mortgage interest rates. What you may not know is that interest rates are already starting to increase, and it's likely that trend is only going to continue. Our team of experts is standing by to help you save before rates go up. Don't look back and wish that you had taken action. Call 833-8-ROCKET or visit rocketmortgage.com.
Rocket. Call for cost information and conditions. Equal housing lender license in all 50 states and MLSConsumerAccess.org number 3030.
The moment you fire up a Gator UTV, the engine has your full attention. The completed job is on the horizon, and the trail meets its match. Just like that, you made short work.
Are we on over there?
Yeah, we're on. We're good to go.
Good morning, everybody. Guess what I'm doing over there, big?
What?
So it's all Joe Biden Monday, playing Muslim music in the background. How you like that?
That's exactly where I was hoping this would go.
Freaking Joe Biden. What a freaking loser.
You see him get lost at the White House?
I want every person who voted for Joe Biden to have to get a tattoo right here.
They don't know they voted
That's
for
a
him.
scary thought.
What if they don't know they voted for him?
Oh, come on, Joe. We ain't talking
What?
about the mad choice.
Beyond that, she texted me Saturday, and I responded immediately.
Yeah. Okay.
This is where all the magic happens, right here, huh, B? Love it.
Is it?
Yep.
Is it magic?
Damn right.
That's a nice word for smoke and mirrors.
Had a watermelon IPA over the weekend. Love it. Look at Taylor.
Mm-hmm. .638 Talk 107.3 FM WBRP. Mornings with Brian Haldane rolling right along. Time to welcome in from right down the hall, Condon Uncensored, Richard Condon. What's happening, brother?
Everything, my man.
I know.
Everything.
It was a busy weekend, and I didn't know how we were going to get this week started with so much going on. I was like, you know what? The best way to kind of kickstart the week would be to bring you down the hall. Because
But you know what? If you don't think you had a busy weekend, unless you were in a coma, compared to Joe Biden, you had a great weekend.
Oh.
Absolutely great weekend.
He had a rough weekend.
You need an IV. You got to be physically exhausted.
he had a rough weekend.
Joe weekend at Bernie's Biden. Wow. You know what? All of you out there, if you voted for Joe Biden, you are the reason this country's going down a crapper. You are. You are. And by the way, you know what we're doing over on Eagle this morning?
What are you doing?
It's all Joe Biden Monday.
Who is the loved one? Allah. Who is Ar-Rahman?
Yeah. Dude, I was pulling my suitcase down college going to the airport. Oh, and then I realized it was in Baton Rouge and I wasn't in Afghanistan. Wow. Thank you, Joe Biden voters. Thank you. How you feeling today, huh? You wearing your little Joe Biden Letterman jacket? Oh, Joe. It's incredible. It's absolutely embarrassing. It's so sickening, Brian, that we have our first female president. Our very first female president. Joe Biden. Wow. Unbelievable.
Is Joe Biden the president even?
No, it's Kamala. Or the administration, or the damn woke movement, all the jackasses out there. Thank you. You are the reason America is being destroyed. Hey, hug your grandkid today and say, guess what I did? I voted for Joe. Unbelievable, man.
The situation in Afghanistan.
And I got the vice president with a more annoying voice than me and Fran Drescher. It's like, what is going on?
Remember when Fran
And she's
Drescher
got
was
that
a thing?
little, oh, I don't have self-confidence, so I'm going to go, God, what a loser.
Remember when Fran Drescher was a thing?
Yep.
That's a good callback right there.
It's amazing.
So
it's absolutely amazing what's going on in this damn country. And each and every day we wake up here locally and we're saying it's not going to get any worse. Oh, by the way, I want to tell everybody on this Monday the very, very positive about having a Delta variant here in East Baton Rouge Parish. Only one murder in August, and we're past the halfway point. So that is huge. So Mayor Broom blamed the whole COVID on the crime. You remember? Oh, crime, it's COVID. It's COVID. It's COVID. Well, this Delta variant, I'm going to tell you something. All of these little candlelight things, Lord, let me tell you this. Neighborhood watches, gas for guns, truce. Let's play a little around the world with the kids in impoverished areas. None of that did a damn thing. Delta. Go Delta, baby. Because Delta has eliminated people being shot in Baton Rouge. Now, I know we got the little grocery store over in Port Allen, but besides that, Plank Road, but then I expect that. That's every damn day.
Well, Port Allen's, I mean, that's completely different
I love
administration.
I go over there and get Hubig's pies.
Those are coming back.
Damn right they are. Sure they are.
I don't think it's called Hubans, though. I think
Whatever
it's
the hell it's called. Let me tell you this, Brian. I don't know about you. Did you watch the Saints?
I did.
Well, this is going to shock you. I'm not worried about the 6 turnovers. I like Callaway. I like this guy, Tony Jones Jr. I like it. I like Debo. I like a Debo at corner. Mm-hmm. I like him. I know it's preseason. I understand all of that, but I'm somewhat excited about it.
Are you?
Yep.
Why is that?
Well, because, I mean, I saw some things on defense, and again, well, this kid, what is it, Caden Elias or whatever, the linebacker?
Okay.
Yeah, no, it's just like Debo didn't play last year because of injury, but I just like some of the things I saw down low. With Sean Payton, you know, in the preseason, he doesn't take any of that serious.
I know.
And most coaches don't either. But the talent-wise, I wasn't impressed with Jameis. Taysom, a little bit. But Jameis did lead him down the field on that long drive.
The touchdown
so I kind
play,
of like that, too.
The touchdown play in particular I was impressed with from Jameis Winston, because that was not the primary receiver. Montgomery went in motion. He was the primary receiver. Jameis checked down, found his guy. I appreciated that.
So, I mean, I see some talent there. Now, what's going to happen, you know, once they get healthy with the cornerback position? What's the guy's name? Mamayu or whatever, the defensive lineman who's got to be out 6 games to start the season?
David Onyemata.
Yeah,
Onyemata,
yeah. Whatever. And sometimes I can butcher a word. But, I mean, I like his potential. I mean, seriously, look, there's a lot of talent there. Now, what's going to happen? You don't have Drew Brees anymore, and I understand all of that. No leadership. But, I mean, I wasn't as disappointed. 6 turnovers. I mean, that's an individual lack of focus. That can be corrected. But overall, I thought they looked okay.
Okay, so 6 turnovers. I hate to, make excuses and just write this off, but when you're catching passes from 2 different guys every single day, you're not on the chemistry level you need to be. And all 3 quarterbacks threw an interception in the game, so that contributes to it. That's half of them right there. But beyond that, though, I was impressed with depth at running back. Because when you looked at this, what was his name again? Tony something.
Tony Jones.
Tony Jones.
He's.
Is there going to be room for him on the roster as good as he looked?
After winning, well, you see, it's only one preseason game, so we'll see. Because, they brought in Devontae from Atlanta,
right.
So they got some experience at Harris. But if he could play like that, he just seemed to be the quickest one with the football in his hand, trying to find a hole. And when he got to the outside, he looked to have some juice in his legs. And that's the only thing that concerned me going into this season. Are they going to have anybody with any speed? At the wideout position, I mean, we know what Kamara can do. We understand that. But can he stay healthy? How many touches is he going to get? But, man, that's where, with Jameis, you need somebody on the outside with speed. I thought Callaway looked good. So, overall, I wasn't that bummed out. I mean, I expected less because I couldn't forget about the 6 turnovers. I know the coaching staff can't. But
they'll work through that.
That's correctable. I get that. And they know that because if they keep doing that, they'll be cut. The good thing about this is you only got 2 more preseason games to deal with. Unlike, a lot of people forget, in the early 70s and 80s, early 80s, they used to have 6 preseason games. They used to have 6.
That's a lot.
Yes.
I didn't know that.
They used to have 6 preseason games, and that was brutal.
That is.
So at least you only got 3 now. So, when you're paying for your season tickets now, you get more for the value.
We got 1 minute left before we get a break, and I appreciate you coming down to get us kick-started. Hurricane season has not been this year what it was last year.
And I'm pretty pissed.
That's the whole impetus behind this, Rich, is I miss my guy. I got to get you down here.
Golf, and that's what's ticking me off. And I know, look, it's self-serving, and I get all of this. I don't want anybody to have any water in their house, experience any damage. But unless something like that happens or we get a new variant, Brian and I won't work together here. This is kind of like a mirage.
I know.
It's a placebo. This is not going to happen on a regular basis. I'll tell you one thing. If you want the best show in this town, put you and I together.
I know.
That's what I'm talking about.
Should we do this every Monday?
Well, you know what? I'll tell you one thing. I think your audience wants it, and who am I to deny them what they want?
This is where I'm at. This is exactly where I'm at.
I'm not self-serving, dude.
All right,
I'm a giver.
Yeah, you are.
Yep. Anna
Yes, you
calls
are.
me in studio every morning, the big G.
I'm not sure that's where she was going with that, but we love you anyway. He's Richard Condon. You can catch him down the
Have a
hall
great day.
on Eagle 98.1. Appreciate you, brother. That was fun. Would you be up for doing this every Monday?
Like at this time?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, because that way, everything that happens on the weekend's
Right.
so crazy. Whatever.
But I don't talk about national stuff like hardly ever, and this would be a good launching pad to do that.
You don't mind me, man. You know, I'm easy. Whatever you want.
Love it.
All right, B, have a go.
All right, brother.
Who's this gentleman?
Do what?
Grant.
This is Grant. He's
Grant, how
training.
are you?
He's training.
How about you? I'm training.
Good for you.
Thank you.
Ah, da, 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 da. Gonna test the YouTube rules today. Came close. Do what? No, that was exactly what it was supposed to be. That was exactly what I was hoping for, and a little bit more.
Went downstairs, printed something.
No, my role there is the corrective lines underneath. Yeah. We're gonna see if we can pull this off on a weekly basis. I kind of like it to start on Monday. Kickstarts everything. I don't know what I did this morning, but this coffee is terrible. Tiffy says, "Oh, I'm so glad I'm awake for this." The Monday Morning Rich Minute. I think so. Y'all listen to the Kill Meat Show, Brian's Big Three. I have a feeling it's going to kind of evolve into something that's similar to that, and we'll call it Condon's Countdown. If we like, if we're able to pull this
If
off.
FCC allows it.
Well,
No.
yeah. I'm thinking more down the hall, but yeah. Tiffy says, "My two yats." Mooyah? Okay. All right, you got those John Bell cuts. Will I have time to squeeze in Mooyah before your money now? Okay. I'll hit on the back end. Yeah.
See an accident? Report it at WBRZ Traffic on Twitter. This report is brought to you by Shawbells, where you can get up to $100 off install with the purchase of 4 new Bridgestone or Firestone tires. Visit ShawbellsTire.com to learn more.
Appreciate Condon for stopping by. First of many guests throughout the day today. Next hour, Dr. Brett Hutchinson from Our Lady of the Lake is going to be on board. It is back to school time in a COVID environment. That means we're talking about COVID and kids, COVID and back to school. Not just mitigation measures, but talking about anxiety as well. That's from Medical Monday, presented by Our Lady of the Lake in the next hour. Stephen Waguespack from LABI can be hopping on board next hour as well. In the 8 o'clock hour, Senator Bill Cassidy does a little myth busting when it comes to the infrastructure package, and we talk COVID deaths and opioid deaths with Dr. Beau Clark, our coroner. Right now, here's your Money Now. So there's so many different things I like about Condon coming in. Number one, it's an in-studio guest, which for the visual is a hell of a lot better. Do Don's regular appearance opens up new sponsorship opportunity? Maybe a spice company? Don. You mean Rich? We'll see where it goes. We'll see where it goes. Everything starts with content around here. That's how this day in history came to be. That is how, top stories and trending carried over from the previous hosts. That's how the outside in came to be. Oh, Troy deleted his own message. I got to get a new gallon jug of water. This thing's getting a little gamey over here. Yeah. I mean, I just refill it from the machine, the water cooler downstairs every day. Oh, okay. 652, Talk 107.3 FM, WBRP, Mornings with Brian Haldane, rolling right along. CBS World News Roundup coming your way in about 6.5 minutes. So what do you think? Make that a regular thing on a Monday? It's a good way to kickstart a Monday.
Yeah, I like it. Gets the blood flowing.
Doesn't it?
Gets your heart rate up a little bit.
I mean, he didn't burn the studio down, so that's a plus and a minus, but a plus. I don't know. That was fun. I appreciate Rich. That's always a good time. Hey, like I said, CBS World News Roundup coming out your way in just a little bit. Governor John Bel Edwards held a COVID press conference on Friday. We're going to dive into that in 60 seconds. I do need to tell you about the folks over at Mooyah Burgers, Fries, and Shakes. Took the family out last night. Took the family out to the Mooyah on Segan Lane. They got two locations, Segan just north of Industrialplex or Blue Bonnet at Highland. Either location, same great service, same great food, same fresh ingredients, same wonderful team there to greet you and welcome you in with just above board customer service. We got to experience that yesterday at the Mooyah over on Segan Lane. Brought the whole family in. I deviated. I did not go with my normal double Diablo. I've decided that the double Diablo is just too much. It's too much. I went with the campfire burger that they've got going on special all month long. They're having a special campfire burger and a s'more shake. Because of my diet, I stayed away from the shake. But oh my word, the campfire burger, top notch. My wife got the best quesonario, also top notch. And the rest of the kids, regular cheeseburger. Son gets a hot dog. Boom, we're good to go. Everybody in the family loving what they get. And I got to tell you, that's a win on so many levels to be able to go out and have all three kids happy, the wife happy, I'm happy. It's all good to go, and it's all at Mooyah Burgers, Fries, and Shakes. By the way, download the app. You get a free order of fries just for downloading the app and specials throughout the year at Mooyah. All right, Governor John Bel. Oh, look at that. I had the Mooyah up on the board during the Mooyah spot. How about that? Governor John Bel Edwards was at the microphone Friday. He didn't have a whole lot good to say.
I'll start by saying we don't have much good news today. As bad as things have been over the last couple of weeks, they've just continued to move in the wrong direction. And there's nothing in the data today that suggests that we are at or nearing the peak of this surge, which is very, very concerning.
Yeah, I'm going to disagree a little bit. I hear what he's saying. And the data that's already in the books, sure. When it comes to the hospitalizations, when it comes to the percent positivity, and when it comes to the overall cases, absolutely. But there's another column to look at here, and that is the number of people who have gotten vaccinated over the last 2 to 3 weeks. The higher that number goes, the slimmer your pool of people who are going to be susceptible to this. Not contract it, not carry it. We know that's all still in question. But those who end up in the hospital, if we're told every single day, 90% of those hospitalized are unvaccinated, and then we're told in a separate column that the number of people who've gotten their first shot statewide has increased by, 8-9% over the last 2 weeks? That's got to reduce the number of people in the pool of those who can be susceptible, who would be ending up in the hospital had they not been vaccinated on the front end. Now, Moderna and Pfizer, there's time in between both shots, yes, so there will be lag time there. But nonetheless, we've heard from the start, getting one shot is better than getting no shots. Getting two, you're a lot more certain. Not 100% certain, but a lot more certain. The governor talked about the importance of getting the vaccine. This is going to be cut 3. Talk about the importance of getting the vaccine to just slow the transmission overall.
As you all know, being vaccinated is very important to stop this current surge, but also to reduce transmission and prepare us for any surges that may come down the road. And as we slow transmission, you slow the rate of mutation and the variants that develop and so forth, because there is nothing that prevents the next variant that happens from being even worse than Delta, if you can imagine that. And so this is really important for all of those reasons and many, many more.
He's got to be careful there. I'm with him 100%. Yes, absolutely. But you know what's wrong with that? You're leaving a hole in the messaging for someone to dive in and question everything else. When you say that getting vaccinated will slow transmission, someone's going to blow back and say, well, if I'm less likely to transmit because I'm vaccinated, why do I still have to wear a mask after I'm vaccinated? Look, nothing is an absolute with COVID. We're all still 18 months in learning as we go. But every time we run into the possibility for somebody just to throw, what was the phrase Bruce Willis used in Die Hard, to throw a monkey in the wrench, it pops up that way every single time. The governor did talk about, now that the shot at 1 million is over with and students are getting back on campus for colleges, how about the shot at 100?
Today I'm announcing a brand new vaccine reward program. It'll be Shot for 100, where we're going to give $100 to the first 75,000 college students who get vaccinated at participating institutions of higher education. This is incredibly important as school resumes, because 18 to 29-year-olds, and you're going to see this with Dr. Cantor in just a few minutes, and you've seen it before over the previous weeks, a huge percentage of our cases and transmission are being driven by people in this age group, and quite frankly, it's one of the lowest age groups in terms of the percentage that are actually vaccinated. So this is really important as school gets started up again and people travel back to Louisiana or from wherever they have been in order to start the fall semester.
So another incentive program out there, which is going to beg the question of, if you're already vaccinated, because a number of students who are headed back to campus are already vaccinated, if you're already vaccinated, are you eligible for that? We'll find out the details of that as the week wears on. But it also begs the question of how many people, grown adults, not students, how many people out there who have been on the shelf about getting vaccinated are just going to sit idly by and wait? Just wait. When will my incentive be worth me going down there? What can I get more out of this? I will bide my time. I will step between raindrops. I will wait and wait and wait. I'll get vaccinated when I feel like I can get paid well enough to do so. We saw the shot for 1 million coincide with the number of people who went out there and really beefed up the numbers for vaccinations. Now, that coincided with the Delta variant surge as well. But how many people are going to wait? And every time you offer a new incentive program, what happens to the folks that just did it the right way? You're not punishing them, but you're kind of punishing them. Everybody who got up and did it because they felt like it was the right thing to do, you don't get jack. Here comes the CBS World News Roundup on Talk 107.3. What up, Jay? Nothing much. Yeah, how you doing this morning? Social media questions. Okay. I'm having all kinds of Facebook problems. I can't access, I can't post from Talk's Facebook at all. Would that go through you?
Yeah, let me look. I mean, I'm an admin, so I can check.
I'm supposed to be as well.
Yeah, let me look.
I think it's an authentication, like it's two-factor authentication with Facebook. It's not letting me do it at all.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's weird.
That's odd.
Yeah.
And you have like the Google Authenticator app and all that stuff?
No, I can't download new apps. So it gives me the opportunity to put in my cell phone number as a second factor, and then it won't send me the text message that it's supposed to send me.
Yeah, we might have to send it there.
Okay.
Taylor, what's your schedule like today?
This and then midday.
Do you have, what responsibilities do you have in the middle of there, between those two things? Anything? Let's get together. This ends at 9, right?
Yes.
Are you gonna join our 9 a.m. meeting? Yeah. Have you ever been in that before?
Oh yeah, I mean,
What?
Yeah, I got you. Once that's over, let's see what I sit down and chat for a little while.
Okay.
Brian, see if I can see.
Yeah, if there's anything holding me up or whatever on our end before, I have a feeling I'm going to have to be on the phone with Facebook at some point, which is a pain.
Yeah, they switched over to that two-factor authentication for people that are grouped.
Oh, I know. So I've got a little side hustle where I deal with it there as well. I found, I have the Facebook Pages Manager, the business manager. Now, for the companies I work with on the side, but it's when I go to Talks page on there, it will let me look at analytics. It will let me read all the posts. It will not let me post fresh, which is just a pain when, like, you know, a contractor hits me up over the weekend and says, well, you need to promote our show with a post. And I'm like, well, now I got to text Cade on a Saturday and, like, hope that he's, you know, just sitting idly by waiting to do whatever. Yeah, so.
Chris Elliott's having the same problem with Waguespack right now. Increased permissions is like
Look, I asked this question. I asked it last Friday during Tech Gumbo. We all hate Facebook. Like, can we agree that we all hate Facebook? And yet we continue to go back. Like Rihanna to Chris Brown, we can't give it up.
it makes the most money for businesses still.
Yeah, I know. It sucks. Well, I'll get with you after the, well, whenever. Yeah.
Let me look at the back end of our side first and see if I can. Ironically, like, I wonder if me making you just an editor instead of an admin will let you post again, because I wonder if it's like admins have to have a higher level of permission. I might try that. See what happens.
Hey, that could be a short-term fix, and then I'll get my. There's something wrong with my phone. I can't download apps at all. So, and I'm like 2 months away from getting a new phone, so I'm not downloading new apps. I got to go through it every time I go to the stupid gym. I got to put my phone number in instead of me scanning the QR code because I can't download that.
Facebook's 2FA is Google, so you gotta have the Google Authenticator app.
And I know once I download that app, it's going to solve so many problems on so many different platforms.
Pretty good.
Yeah,
It's like the old school.
I've heard.
You ever had a military contractor friend that had a dongle that updated a code every 30 minutes or whatever? That's what this does. So when you log in, it'll say, type this 6-digit code and you pull up your app.
Yeah.
All right, I'll look.
All right, thanks, Jay. All right, back in here. Hey, Brian, September is Childhood Cancer Awareness Month. Get on it. Oh, we'll be all over it. Condon segment opens up new sponsorship opportunities. Think Red Stick Spice. Yes, but I might have something different in mind. COVID numbers. Shouldn't we get numbers related to average number of days in hospital, daily discharge numbers, average number of days symptomatic? So this is something I was debating doing a full segment on over the weekend, and I'm not there yet. The more transparent the dashboard gets, the more we crave. When we see that 90% of the people in the hospital are unvaccinated or undervaccinated, what's the breakdown of those who have gotten one shot versus none? And beyond that, when we hear about the number of children who are contracting COVID, what's the percentage of those that end up in the hospital? Because I saw where they had like a dozen kids at Our Lady of the Lake Our Lady of the Lake Children's last week. Well, if you tell me 2,000 kids contracted COVID or 6,000 kids contracted COVID over the course of a week, a dozen statewide, a dozen end up in the hospital in Baton Rouge. You multiply that 12 times 9 to bring it out to every region in the state. What percentage are you really looking at here? I mean, you're what? That's 108 statewide? What's 12 times 9? 12 times 10 to be 120, so minus 12 would be 108. Yeah. So, yeah, the more data we get, the more data we want. Tiffany says the incentive is life. Oh, Jesus. The incentive is that you don't transmit the deadly virus to your friends and family. Au contraire, bonjour. I'm told I have to wear a mask because I will transmit even though I'm vaccinated. The incentive is if you get the virus, it won't be as severe. Get the shot. I hear you across the board. That doesn't change the fact that you're constantly punished in our society for doing things the right way. Matherns! 706 Talk 107.3 FM WBRP. Mornings with Brian Haldane rolling right along. Hour 2 coming your way right now. Got a busy hour for you. We're going to have top stories and trending in just a minute. A little bit later on, or actually at the end of the hour, we'll have the outside in where we step outside of East Baton Rouge Parish and check in on our surrounding areas. Presented by BRPT Lake. We're going to talk with Dr. Brett Hutchinson for Medical Monday, presented by Our Lady of the Lake. And Stephen Waguespack, president of the Louisiana Association of Business and Industry, is going to hop on board as he does every Monday as well. Before we dive into top stories and trending, get your week started off right. Did you find that you might have missed a few items on your grocery shopping list? Mathern's is here for you with 2 locations. Did you leave the house this morning without packing a lunch? Who packs a lunch, really? Mathern's is your answer there as well. 2 locations, downtown on 3rd Street, Nicholson at the corner of Nicholson and Skip Ertman Drive, right across the street from Tiger Stadium. Dynamite lunch spot. Dynamite lunch spot, whether you're going to the deli counter, getting that day's specials, whether you're going to the sushi bar, getting what's freshly made there, or, my favorite, hitting up the salad bar. I mean, you can go healthy on a Monday for lunch, right? You can start your week off right by hitting up Mathern's salad bar. And I tell you about this every day because, well, with the Delta variant still out there, download the app. When you get your grocery shopping done, you don't need to put on a mask and go in the store. You could just have it brought out to your car. Not to mention the time you save by doing so. Get your grocery shopping done before you leave work. Pull in the parking lot. They bring it out to you. Boom, boom, boom. You're done. On your way. It's the Mathern's app. It's a ton of convenience. All right, let's go. Top stories and trending.
Now, top stories and trending. 5, 4, 3, 2, I let one go. On Talk 107.3 FM, the most trusted name in news. Brought to you by Complete Collision Center, with locations in Zachary and Baton Rouge. Don't let your vehicle be your second accident. Choose CompleteCollision.com. I want to know absolutely everything that's happening.
A vacant house was intentionally set on fire Saturday night on North 29th Street. According to the Baton Rouge Fire Department, firefighters were called to the house within the 1100 block of North 29th Street just before midnight, 11:54 p.m. actually. A rear storage area was engulfed in flames when the firefighters arrived. The fire eventually spread to the attic and main portion of the home. The living area was impacted by minor smoke and water damage. No one, I believe, was injured in the fire. A 4-year-old was taken by ambulance and treated at the hospital Friday evening after being forgotten in a daycare van. The child's parents told this to our news partners over at WBRZ. Jenna Oquan, the mother of the 4-year-old, talked with our news partners and said the 4-year-old was shaken up and was in shock. The child was treated for dehydration, was soaking in sweat when he was found in the van by his father shortly after 5 p.m. Friday. The child's parents said the boy was picked up by the daycare van driver around 3 p.m. from a nearby school, would have typically been cared for until being picked up by parents around 5. Oakland says once they arrived at the hospital, the app used to check kids in and out of the daycare showed her sister checked her son out. The mother tells WBRZ that did not happen, believes the daycare added it after the fact, so this story is going to get worse before it gets better. By the way, even with the rainy weather on Friday as clouds broke, sunshine warmed the skies, at nearly 90 degrees outside, an hour inside a vehicle could feel more like 130 than 90. I don't care if anybody is registered on an app is checking a kid out. Do a walkthrough, for crying out loud. At least one person was injured in a shooting at a gas station Sunday afternoon. Authorities said one person was taken to the hospital after shooting at a Shell station on Plank Road around 5:10 p.m. yesterday. Unfortunately, that is all the information we have. No information on suspect or motives at this time. Southern University students return to campus today. First day of the fall semester begins at Southern University. As students make their way to day 1 of this semester's classes, the university is continuing its effort to see that employees are vaccinated. Since the start of the pandemic, Southern University has played a major role in ensuring that all its Baton Rouge area has access to COVID testing and COVID vaccinations. Today's vaccination event, which will be held over at the university's nursing school, is the most recent of such efforts. The vaccines would be one way to keep everyone on campus protected and amid the COVID-19 health crisis. So there are vaccination events as school gets back in. Be on the lookout for the same when LSU gets back in as well. Speaking of COVID and vaccinations, the Louisiana Department of Health has made a third dose of the COVID-19 vaccine available for people who are moderately to severely immunocompromised. The CDC recommends waiting at least 4 weeks after receiving the second dose before getting another shot. The CDC has only made booster shots available for people who have received the Moderna or Pfizer vaccines. This is for people right now who are immunocompromised, but there's no way they don't get around to the boosters being there for everybody eventually. I mean, it's where it's going to be headed. That's your top stories. Here's a look what's trending this morning. We have a second storm that's currently has a name that's out there right now. Tropical Storm Grace has formed east of the Caribbean. Currently, maximum sustained winds are around 40 miles per hour. It did drop back down to tropical depression status overnight, though that is expected to change again today. It is expected to bring heavy rainfall and gusty winds to the Leeward Islands, Virgin Islands, and Puerto Rico. Forecast to move west across the Caribbean through next week and eventually straight across the Gulf of Mexico, basically, to Texas and Mexico in that area. Grace is not expected right now to be a threat to us, also not expected to be a very strong storm as it makes its way. So you got Fred heading towards Florida, Grace heading towards Texas and Mexico, and then Tropical Depression number 8, not expected to be a threat to anybody. There's your top stories and trending. We are due up for a quick break. When we come back, it's time for Medical Monday presented by Our Lady of the Lake. Let's keep with the back-to-school theme. Talk about COVID and kids with Dr. Brett Hutchinson next. Yeah, he's supposed to be. If the incentive is life, then don't incentivize. Don't have a shot at $1 million. Don't have a shot at 100. Don't have gift cards. Don't have any of the other garbage that's out there. If the incentive is life, then the incentive is life. That's the problem I have with it. Yes, it is time for Medical Monday, and we're at the cross-section right now of COVID and kids. We're at the cross-section right now of back-to-school time, and so many more schools around the state are back to school in person, leaving behind the hybrid model or the virtual model, but the Delta variant is still very much a thing. So let's talk with Dr. Brett Hutchinson about this. Dr. Hutchinson, good morning. Welcome back to Talk 107.3. How are you?
Hey, just fine. Good. Thank you for having me.
No, glad to have you on here. Glad to be talking about this, as it is very much not just in the headlines, but in our day-to-day lives as well right now. Let's start off with the very basics. From mitigating risk when it comes to COVID, what should parents be doing to protect their children right now?
Well, I would say the number one thing for parents of children 12 years old and up would be to go ahead and get your child vaccinated. We know that that's the best way to prevent major disease and prevent the spread. And the vaccine's not available yet for children under 12. Nobody's really sure exactly when that's coming, but hopefully soon. But so for that age group, and then for everybody, the things that we're all used to doing for the past year and a half are still what's best. But wear masks when those are the guidelines, washing hands frequently, using hand sanitizer, keeping up social distancing, and having, even if it means practicing doing that with your young children who maybe are in school for the first time, those are the right ideas.
I apologize in advance if this is outside of your wheelhouse or outside of your area of expertise, but why is 12 the magic number for these things?
It just has to do with what ages of children were in the original studies, or the second level of studies. And so the studies for children under 12 are ongoing. They just don't have enough time just yet to recommend the vaccine by the normal guidelines.
Okay, so there's nothing there that would be potentially harmful from a developmental standpoint.
Oh, no. I mean, we're just really sort of playing the time game to get the next stage opened up.
Let's get back to mitigation measures in just a little bit, but I want to talk about what's going on inside kids' heads, because if you're, and especially under the age of 12, when you're going back to school and you're seeing things treated differently, be it masks or maybe a teacher wearing a face shield altogether, this can play from a mental aspect as well. What should we be doing when it comes to dealing with kids and COVID anxiety?
Well, the most important thing a parent can do is talk to their child, and every parent has a feel for what their child is capable of understanding, and of course it's age dependent in most circumstances. So having a parent or parents talk to children on their particular level, that's very important. Encourage your child to ask questions, and then give honest answers. It's okay to say, I don't know, or we don't know, or we're not sure, when that's the proper answer. But getting a question out there and answering it is super important. A lot of children, particularly young children, because of how their mind works, how their psychology is, they jump to conclusions, and they have these interesting, not always helpful thoughts about things that, if we can address them directly, can help cut down on that. And along that same line, particularly for younger kids, but also for some older kids too, it's usually or probably a good idea to limit their exposure to maybe things that are said on the news, to things that are said in social media. A lot of things, as they come across on a television news circumstance, can be scary to young children. And there's a lot of, unfortunately, very false information that spreads very quickly on the internet and social media. So having some control over that's usually helpful as well.
100%. In fact, I can speak to this firsthand, that our kids consume a lot more than we think they consume.
Absolutely.
And so when you talk about talking with our kids, that really translates into be careful the way we talk to each other as well.
That's correct. The other thing kids do, especially young kids, is they pick up on just stresses and tensions that might be in a household, even when we're trying to protect them from that. So always remember that as well.
Absolutely. There needs to be a healthy balance there of keeping your poise as a grown-up, as it were.
Yes.
The Delta variant is showing a number of different symptoms than previously. When it comes to symptoms, what should parents be on the lookout for if their kid wakes up with any congestion or coughing and the like?
Yeah, so a little different than previous variants. Delta's prime symptoms for most people seem to be something in the realm of headache, sore throat, runny nose, fever. There's a little less of the loss of taste and loss of smell that was so prominent before. Doesn't mean it wouldn't happen, but it just means that the lack of that isn't quite the reason to feel good that it's not COVID. A little less of the sort of persistent cough or coughing spells that seemed more prominent before. So, if a child wakes up with some sniffles and congestion, if they don't have fever, that's a good sign. Not to say that you can't have COVID without fever, but lack of fever would be helpful. I would also put out there that if that's not your child's typical pattern, if your child is not one that has allergies or tends to have a sniffle and a cough, and now they have it and they don't usually have it, that would be a reason to ask some questions. It would always be appropriate to bring them to somebody like me and let's take a look. Another thing would be, just making sure that they wear their mask. I mean, that's a requirement to be in school right now, but if there's any question about whether a child's symptoms may or may not be something more than just allergies or a cold, wearing a mask is going to be the right idea. And another detail in that thought process would be, have they had a significant recent exposure? Now, before being back in school, that was maybe a little easier to answer. Hey, we hadn't been anywhere. We haven't been on vacation. Now we're in school, so there's a higher exposure potential. But schools have gotten very, very good at notifying people when there's a suspected or confirmed exposure in a classroom.
We're going to get back to the masks in just a minute.
Okay.
Because as a parent of a 5-year-old,
yeah,
the theory versus reality runs pretty far apart. that Venn diagram is literally two circles. But let's stick with the symptoms for just another minute, because we're also looking at, you mentioned allergies and you mentioned runny nose. Runny nose wasn't very much a thing for the first iterations of COVID, was it?
Not as much. I mean, it was on the list of possible symptoms, but it wasn't. If you just had a runny nose and maybe one other thing, it wasn't quite as a suspicion. But that's a bigger part of it for sure now.
How is this late and or early? I don't know if it's half a year late or half a year early. How is this rash of RSV affecting diagnosis of COVID?
Just adding another layer to the thought process. I don't want to overspeak what may be the case. I mean this to hopefully make people feel better. It looks like RSV in our community is trending down. It's not to say it's not out there at all, but numbers have suggested that it's trending down. But yes, there can be a lot of overlap, particularly in young children who are more susceptible to RSV. Runny nose is a huge component of RSV.
Let's get back to the masks for just a minute. Dr. Brett Hutchinson from Our Lady of the Lake is our guest. We're talking kids and COVID this morning. What kind of mask should our kids be wearing to school?
Probably the most important answer is one that's comfortable, one that they're actually going to wear. To be a little more specific on detail, cloth masks or cotton masks or medical masks are what's primarily recommended. Neck gaiters, it's recommended that those be 2 layers or at least folded over so that can be 2 layers. But if a child doesn't think their mask is comfortable, then the chance of them wearing it properly, particularly at the younger ages, is going to be pretty low. And so comfortable, but comfortable and also well-fitting, which means over the nose and fitting snugly. Sometimes getting a young child to wear a mask is to make it fun. So practice at home. Get a mask that they like in terms of what's on it. Is it a character that they like? Does it make their face look silly, like they have a funny smile or a cat nose or something like that? That a lot of times is very intriguing to young children. And also to remember, particularly with young children, they're a lot more open-minded than we are as adults. So most of us, probably have mask fatigue, and we talk about wearing masks and putting them back on, and my first thought is, do we have to do this again? Young children, especially the 5-year-olds that weren't sort of in the wave of children to have to wear them before, they don't really come at it like that. As long as a parent brings them a positive idea, okay, it's time to wear your mask, let's practice, they'll a lot of times just go right with it.
A lot more malleable than we would think. And as for my 9-year-old daughter, total fashionista, so the mask is literally just another accessory. With the 5-year-old son, either shark teeth or superhero is the way to go. But
there you go.
One thing I can't do in real life is keep them from being 5-year-olds. I mean, I'll just ask you, how do we stop them from trading masks with their friends? How do we, it's the real thing.
No, it's absolutely true. I think my answer there is we punt to our wonderful teachers who are going to be in the room with them all day long. In a serious answer, I mean, just talking to them about it. And no, nothing's going to be perfect, and wearing masks is not perfect for anybody because we all touch them too much and let them slip below our nose when we're not careful. So just practicing and reassuring, and just if they're at home and kind of playing around with it, just kind of correcting very, very in a very friendly way about wearing it the right way.
Let's talk about testing now when it comes to kids. If a child tests positive for COVID-19, what are we doing then?
Yeah, so the very basic answer there is if you have symptoms and have tested positive for COVID, that's a 10-day quarantine as a minimum. When we have a child at home, and some of this varies depending on the age of the child. If you've got a child who's old enough to be self-sufficient, an adolescent, a teenager, the idea is that they kind of do things for themselves and they don't really interact with anybody. Ideally, we want a person who's tested positive to kind of stay in their room or in their own section of the house where not really anybody else is going to have to go into that space. We want them, ideally, if they don't have to share a bathroom, that would be great. We want them to not eat in common places of the house. And when they're out of their space, out of their room, we want them to wear a mask. And ideally, others in the home would wear a mask also. It gets a little more difficult, let's say, or complicated if it's a younger child who can't do all those things for themselves. So it's great in that scenario if we have parents who are vaccinated, because that makes us feel a lot better that those parents probably won't get infected, or certainly won't have major symptoms as they have to take care of their child. But if it's a home with two parents, try to have it maybe where one parent becomes the parent who's responsible for the young child who has tested positive, so that we minimize the exposure, and then trying to maintain some of those other principles where the child who has tested positive is kind of kept in a more not isolated, but kept away from others in the home as much as possible.
What about the difference between exposure versus a positive test? How far do we go? And this is a dangerous topic to walk down, because you're talking about families. So when it comes to just exposure, do we separate? Do we completely,
Right. Yeah, it's a little trickier. So if we have a child, and this is as we're in school, a very common scenario. So we have a child, we've been told there's been a positive in their class, and now that child's exposed. Okay, so that child would now, there's a quarantine to complete for any exposed person, and the minimum amount of time on that is 7 days. If you test after 5 days from the last known exposure and that test is negative, then you can end your quarantine after 7 days, still wearing masks and doing all the other things that you would do after the quarantine, or if you had not been quarantined. Another option there is to not test, and then the quarantine is 10 days for an exposed person, just like it would be for a person who has had it. A little tweak right now with Delta being so contagious is the actual recommendation is to test potentially as soon as you know you've been exposed, and then if that test is negative, test again at 5 days. I have a discussion with my patients at that point about whether they want to test twice, or kind of how they would like to work through that. In the home, if we know a child has been exposed and they're doing that home quarantine, it would be a lot of the same ideas where mainly we'd like to keep them in their own space and wearing masks. It doesn't have to be quite so potentially rigid where we're keeping separation. I mean, mostly if a child is exposed and not showing symptoms, wearing a mask and trying to keep the 6 foot distance, that's going to be the most practical thing.
In the meanwhile, where can folks go if they want to learn more? What kind of resources are out there?
Well, we can always help out at our Lady of the Lake website. The CDC is usually very reliable. I mean, honestly, that's where doctors go to get some of their information as well.
He is Dr. Brett Hutchinson. We always appreciate the time, man. Y'all such a valuable resource. Thank you so much.
Thank you for your time.
Absolutely. Medical Monday. Medical Monday presented by Our Lady of the Lake. We come to you every Monday at this time. And yet there's a lot of good stuff to unpack from that. There's a lot of things that, like, as a parent, I can tell you there's a lot of things that the theory versus the reality are tough to walk that balance. It's tough to take a kid who did not test positive but was exposed and separate them within the home. It's tough enough when they are positive. I think most families would probably take one parent so the kid's not alone, One parent will, if you'll pardon the expression, jump on the grenade for that and say, hey, me and James will be upstairs if you need us. We'll see you in a week. We're going to talk business in our next segment. Stephen Waguespack from LABI is going to hop on board. In the meanwhile, I've got to tell you about the folks over at Complete Collision Center. 2 locations, 19511 Plank Road in Zachary, or 9848 Perkins Road in Baton Rouge. You don't have to memorize those addresses. You just got to remember CompleteCollision.com. CompleteCollision.com. They do things a little bit differently at Complete Collision Center. They're here to make sure you and your family get back onto the road safely after an accident. Safely is the key word there. They're certified by more than a dozen major car manufacturers. They have the iCar Gold Class certification. You can learn more about that at CompleteCollision.com. But getting you back onto the road safely means taking the time to find out all the hidden damage as well. Not just what's on the surface, not just what looks pretty from the outside, but getting underneath to the hidden damage and getting that fixed. Fixing the redundancies, fixing the crumple zones, fixing what your car manufacturer put in to make sure your family stays safe. Doug and his team do the same. CompleteCollision.com. Don't let who you choose to repair your vehicle be your second accident. Troy says, Wait, Galen says, I'm not a fan of the incentives, but that's what it takes, then so be it. Okay, fine, but if they're out there, why not make them out there for everybody? It doesn't seem like it's that difficult to me to say, if you got in line first, you're still good with us. Because otherwise, why not hold out for the next one? $100 isn't enough, I'm going to wait for 2. Because they're going to give it to me. Troy says, I want more enhanced COVID numbers so that I could better understand the context of what I'm being told, like knowing the labor participation numbers when being told about unemployed and unemployed numbers. Yeah, that's true. The mask wearing, hand sanitizing, and closing down water fountains all help with all the funk the kids usually come home with. Yeah, it does, Tiffany, but at the same time, though, isn't that why we can't prove it, but wouldn't that naturally lead you to believe that's why we didn't see RSV until like 4 months after the RSV season? Byron is hilarious. We talked about the Taliban in the first hour there, Galen. I have in my one-off stack today, which I haven't gotten to any of them yet. You tell me where I'm going with this topic. You ready? All right. Headline from WBRZ. I believe this was on Friday, actually. Friday at 10:31 p.m. Local restaurant walk-ons looking to sign walk-on athletes.
Where are you going with that? Oh, I know the answer right now. I believe the guy wears number 30.
Yeah, he does.
Oh, my God. Yes, sir. It looks like 2 minutes.
If he makes one catch, it pays off for walk-ons. He is exactly what they're looking for here. That's another good one. Hey. How has
That's the
Small
first name I
Sliders
thought of.
not signed Jared Small?
First name I thought of.
All right, I gotta go dump out the rest of my coffee. I'll be right back, y'all. This is the worst coffee I've ever made. I don't know what I did wrong.
See an accident? Report it at WBRC Traffic on Twitter. This report is brought to you by Shawbells, where you can get up to $100 off install with the purchase of 4 new Bridgestone or Firestone tires. Visit ShawbellsTire.com to learn more.
How do you choose the right attorney? I give you the answers at MurphyLawFirm.com. Don't allow insurance companies to take advantage of you. Make the right decision. Money on the table. Visit MurphyLawFirm.com or call me, Attorney Peyton Murphy, at 928-8800. Main office of Baton Rouge.
I took control. We took control. This is Chris Medine with Medine
from Medine's Collision Center.
Decisions are made instantly, like where to take your car, body repair. But doesn't my insurance company recommend a collision shop? It's your right to choose a collision center. Don't let anyone
Kill my mic for a second. Ba-ba-ba-ba-ba-ba-ba. Afghanistan falls to the Taliban. Alternate headline, Joe Biden had a 28-3 lead on the Taliban. Too much? Too much? There's never a bad time for that joke. Wait, hang on. Sorry. Yo, what are we covering this morning? Cool. Okay. Oh my God. Okay. Very, very much so. All right, hang tight. Go ahead, Kyle Pitts.
It was a picture when they grabbed the Kyle Pitts. It was like, who's going to stop the Falcons offense? And somebody commented and goes, the Falcons.
That's good. 738 Talk 107.3 FM WBRP mornings with Brian Haldane rolling right along. All right, coming up next hour, 8:35, Senator Bill Cassidy is going to be on the hotline to talk about this $1.2 trillion infrastructure package. This is the bipartisan package, not the $3.5 trillion that's being talked about as well. This is the $1.2 trillion. There's a lot that goes into this. Let's break it down from a business perspective right here in Louisiana. The head of the Louisiana Association of Business and Industry, Stephen Waguespack, joins us every week, as he does right now. Good morning, Stephen. How are you?
I'm good, Brian. How you doing, man?
Doing very, very well. Let's talk about transportation to begin with. Let's talk about what goes into this infrastructure package. Where's LABI at on it?
You know, we're looking at it like everyone else is. I mean, our view remains the same. That if they can pass just the bipartisan infrastructure bill, just the $1 trillion bill that tends to the numbers show could lead up to $6 billion down Louisiana in the next 5 years. We think that's a productive step. We think when it comes to infrastructure, it's long been a need, and so we're glad to see that get addressed. And also, is it a perfect bill? Of course not. You're never going to have a bill that funds infrastructure that people are going to universally love. But if they can do that in a standalone fashion, we absolutely would support that. The challenge is not that. The challenge is what it appears Speaker Pelosi is, quite frankly, hell-bent on doing, which is attaching that to the $3.5 trillion bill, which is a hard no. And so, right now she's scrambling to try to find ways to jam/leverage the moderate Democrats in her party to support that approach. If right now the moderate Democrats stand up and say, no, we want to vote separately, what we're hearing sounds pretty good, that the $1 trillion bipartisan bill can pass, the $3.5 trillion can be shelved, then maybe you got a chance to get a good result there. So we're hoping that is what happens. But again, everyone's very familiar with Joe Manchin in the Senate. He's the one that's always been kind of that swing vote in the Senate. People are less familiar with who are the folks in the House doing it. But the truth is, Nancy Pelosi only has a 3-vote, I think, majority. And so, if you get a handful of moderate Democrats, 4 or 5 moderate Democrats who said, look, we're not going to go along with that 3.5 bill, don't even go there, I mean, that really does put the spotlight back on what I think Senator Cassidy has talked about, is trying to pass just that $1 trillion bill, which we think would be helpful for Louisiana.
I want it noted that the phrase "just $1 trillion" was used just like
crazy.
It's part of our everyday lexicon.
In the current era, it's so hard to take a look at issues, no matter whether you're talking about schooling or economy or what's conservative, what's not. I mean, everything is changing so fast. But I think when you look right now is you try to take a step back from the intensity of the moment. Mm-hmm. And I think in my sense is that, look, we've known infrastructure has been a need for decades here in Louisiana. It's really hard to find a solution because every solution is unpopular. There's no such thing as a popular bill that spends that much money on roads and bridges. It's fun to talk about but not do. And so we do think if this bipartisan bill can be passed, and it kind of marries with the bill we passed in the legislature this year, that would put some existing state dollars to roads and bridges. Those two bills alone could really make a difference on things like the Baton Rouge Bridge, the Lake Charles Bridge, some of the other infrastructure we need on drainage, on coastal restoration. So there is more good than bad in that approach. The problem is, can D.C. pass that bill without the $3.5 trillion catch-all, blah, blah, blah? That is the million-dollar question, or maybe the more appropriate thing is the trillion-dollar question.
Well, yeah, absolutely. 4.7 trillion when you add the two together. And if you're a small business who's been hanging on by a thread for the last 18 months, the threat of coming inflation is going to be backbreaking.
It's huge. And look, inflation's here. It's not even coming. And look, and I'm glad you brought up inflation because we're starting to hear this more and more from our members. And, you know, if you think about how that has come to be, so last year, the economy was shut down. Everyone was sent home. But a bunch of federal money was sent throughout the economy. So people had money in their pocket, but they were home hanging out, online shopping, going, ordering from groceries and ordering food takeout and all that stuff. So spending was still there. Then the economy comes back up. And so wages flew up to try to attract people off of the federal enhanced unemployment. So right now, you see every restaurant in town begging, offering wages that are much higher right there. And so inflation is going up, and it's not just in the retail side. It's all the way up the supply chain. Our manufacturers are talking about it as well. And, in the 70s, you saw some of this inflation go up, and it didn't come back down. The question is what's going to happen this time? We saw lumber prices last year fly up in price, but they have come back down a little bit. And so that was a temporary inflation response to this pandemic economy. The question is, a year from now, are we going to see these current inflationary topics come down, or will they continue to stay up and reset prices? If so, that is going to hurt the most vulnerable the most, but hurt everyone to a certain extent. And so that's why we're watching. And that is another feather in the cap, I think, of why it's so important to kill that $3.5 trillion spending bill, because that bill is an inflation, bomb. That bill is an inflation turbo booster.
Yeah.
You want to spread fertilizer over inflation and water it, you pass that bill. And so that's why it's so important to separate those bills, shelve the 3.5, put some spending in there for roads and bridges. Hopefully that gets the economy kicking again without needing federal PPP dollars and things, and maybe that'll bring wages up responsibly instead of manufactured through federal handouts.
You mentioned the inflation. You mentioned the look back at the 70s. It's kind of crazy to see inflation, an increase in energy prices at the pump, and meanwhile, an embassy's being overtaken in a foreign country. The historical similarities are just mapping themselves out.
Yeah, and if you're going to repeat a decade with foreign policy and economic policy, don't pick the 70s. There's a tip, okay? Don't pick the 70s. There's plenty of other decades to pick if you want a copycat. This is the wrong chapter to get stuck on. And so, look, I mean, we're making light of a situation, but what we're seeing with that embassy and some of the visuals there, and you can only imagine over the next couple of weeks and months some of the atrocity reports that are going to come out of that area. It is heartbreaking to see. So
yeah.
If you haven't looked on social media yet and seen some of the pictures, some of these people literally, as the American Air Force planes were leaving the runway, you had Afghans literally like jumping on the wings, hanging on for dear life, and literally taking off on the outside of the plane with these planes and falling off as the planes went off in the air. They were that desperate to escape the atrocities they know are soon to come. And so it is a heartbreaking situation over there.
No, it absolutely is. It absolutely is. And as it unfolds, it's probably going to get worse before it gets better, to say the least. Let's bring it back home and talk Bessie for just a minute, because there were some headlines there last week as well.
Yeah, the State Board of Education is going to meet, I think, later this week on Wednesday. And, the article in the paper this morning talking about the math discussion, I mean, that's definitely one thing. But look, the name of the game really is, the scores came out last week. We saw significant learning loss last year from children all across Louisiana. Those that were virtual, about 15 points worse on scores than those that were in person. Math, science, reading, all down, all throughout the K through 12, scale. We got a big catch up to do. And so, Bessie, yes, they're going to debate the math, but I think even more importantly, what they're going to debate is how to handle that data. Do they do letter grades this year? Do they put out those numbers and scores to parents? Do they penalize schools for the performance last year? And, we've been working with the superintendent and Bessie and other stakeholders, encouraging him, look, you got to tell the truth to parents out there.
Yeah.
You got to make sure they know what's going on, because if schools, either locally at the state level, are going to be making tough decisions on whether to stay in person or virtual, or whether to mask or not, or whatever, parents need to know the hard data, not only the health consequences, but also the education consequences. And so if they need to tweak letter grade, okay, we can tweak it for a year, but the data needs to be crystal clear to parents so they know what kind of performance their school's doing this year. And I think that's going to be the most important, even if wonky debate that Bessie has this week. And we're going to encourage them to be, strong and as transparent as possible.
Hey, it's Stephen Waguespack, president of LABI. And, yeah, you can't turn your back on because you can't progress unless you know where you are.
The data's the data, whether you like it or not.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, speaking of education, kind of a milestone in the Waguespack household this week, huh?
Yeah, Brian, I am officially an old geezer. I dropped off my oldest son to college this weekend, and it was awesome. Super proud of him, but also sad to see him leave the household. But he's a great young man. He's going to do fantastic things, and his mom and I are super proud of him. But you definitely hit an old man milestone when you start kicking kids out of your house, and that's kind of what we did this weekend.
I made the shift to high school, Dad, last week. So I was feeling old, and I want to thank you for putting in perspective and buying me 4 more years before I got to,
Yeah,
sip
you're
iced
knocking
tea
on
on
the
the
door,
porch.
big guy. The data's the data, and the data says you're getting old too, man.
Hey, we got about a minute left. Can we
Yeah.
set the table for what we're going to see redistricting-wise in 60 seconds, or is that too much for this segment?
Yeah, no, that's a great point. Yeah, the census numbers came out, I think it was Friday. And, look, it's kind of a good news, bad news situation, I guess, for depending where you live. The truth is we're not going to lose a congressional seat, and so we don't have that issue in Louisiana. Some of the losses that in population, it looks like, are heavy in North Louisiana. And, in this area, we should hold pretty steady. The Florida parishes in that panhandle, they're going to grow big time. And I think North Louisiana is where there'll be some tough decisions that have to be made on where those lines go. And again, this is where the legislature is going to redraw lines for House members, Senate members, members of Congress, Supreme Court, State Board of Education. These are important positions. And I think the North Louisiana numbers are going to require some pretty creative drawing. And I do think South Louisiana will probably benefit some population because of that. So that's what to stay tuned and watch for. And the legislature will meet early next year in February to take that data and draw those lines.
Yeah, I have a feeling it's going to bring Julia Letlow's district a little bit more into this listening area, which is kind of a win for us as well.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a win-win. And look, the Florida parish is kind of near that area. There's some parishes where she can take up some of that population that's nearby where she already is, and it could be an easy way to adjust her district to make it kind of fluid. So I do think you're going to see some of that North Louisiana talent creep closer to us. Because look, Mike Johnson on the western side of that state is also a talent. So if we can get him near us as well, you'll be surrounded by talent, which is always a good thing.
He is Stephen Waguespack, a talent in his own right. We always appreciate the time, sir.
All right, man. Have a good day. Hey, go Tigers.
Yes, sir. Go Tigers. Here comes your money now. There's a glaring problem with the population numbers versus the representation they have. Like, local leadership versus congressional delegation don't match at all. Troy says Babylon Bee. I saw this one. Babylon Bee headline: CNN praises the Taliban for wearing masks during attack. I saw that one. That was really good. Eric says it actually had some money in it for small modular reactors in the bill. One positive from my point of view. Matt. We Americans spend $143 billion on construction projects alone in Afghanistan. I guess we wanted nicer facilities for families to hunker down in when we. I'm sorry, females to hunker down in when we left. Billions spent on roads when most of the people don't have cars. Yeah, but at least if you got a road, you know where to put the RPG. Or aim the RPG.
definitely have VR matches.
Murphy Law Firm before you hire an attorney for your injury case. Visit murphylawfirm.com.
You did European Demon movie on the things from legally.
All right.
Should be your attorney. Get to know us before you call the main office, Baton Rouge.
If you've got a financial situation you're not quite sure what to do, you better call Gregory.
I started my retirement about 5 years ago, and I took it.
That's a.
My problem is I have champagne taste of your sour. What does a blind know?
Is that cutting it too close?
So will I still be eligible for Medicare?
Is there anything better I can do with the money I transferred into the Roth for my 401k?
My goal is to retire at age 60. I'm 54 right now.
Hey, I have a 9-year-old son, and he's got probably $4,500 in. Is there anything we can invest it in?
I just started a 401k, a little late, Mike.
Oh, sweet baby Jesus, this is terrible. Opioid deaths, COVID deaths. And we're going to reset the table for what defines a COVID death. It's one of those ones that, like, we need reminders every so often before we all start saying, you know, guy was hit by a bus while he had COVID, so he's a COVID death. It happened once in Tampa. A guy in a motorcycle accident died in a motorcycle accident, and he had tested positive for COVID. The coroner declared him a COVID death. 2 weeks later, went back and rewrote the report. But that doesn't matter. It was in the news already.
Traffic on I-12 jammed between
Anytime you want, Beau.
Forest Boulevard. You may want to consider leaving early or taking Florida instead because it's 45 minutes to an airline right now.
45 minutes to Cuban to airline? Good Lord. Usually takes you 10 minutes.
Well, to be fair, you're out there before the sun's up.
Yeah,
And it'd be like me saying, you know, I pulled in at 4:25 this morning was when I pulled in the parking lot. And it takes me 16 minutes to get from my house to here, and I don't get on the interstate. I come up Goodwood, then scoot over to Government, and then just come up Government. I also don't stop for red lights.
Firestone Tires. Visit ShopHillsTire.com to learn more.
Look at our stream button.
Hmm?
Want me to restart our stream? Look at it. It keeps going from red to yellow. We just started doing it.
Leave it for now. I don't know what to do. 7:55 Talk 107.3 FM WBRP Mornings with Brian Haldane rolling right along. Thanks again to Stephen Waguespack for hopping on board from LABI. Look, I don't know. I need to get a better gauge of how nerdy the redistricting conversation is going to be because I'm going to nerd out. I'm just letting you know right now. This does affect. It could very well affect who you vote for, or who you have the possibility of voting for when you walk into the voting booth. Not this election, obviously, but in elections to come. Not just on a congressional level, but on a local level as well. It could very well shape a number of different districts, and the fight is going to be very, very real. So there are applications in real life, and because of that, we'll be dialed in. I appreciate Stephen also talking about the potential of inflation. If that $3.5 trillion is tagged on to the just $1.2 trillion. And we're going to talk with Senator Cassidy in our next hour about this. We're going to talk with Senator Cassidy about how do you keep this from happening. It's out of your hands now. It's on the House side. You've done your work on the $1.2 trillion, or as Stephen says, just $1.2 trillion. Amazing that's an actual phrase. But how do you do your level best to keep these two separate? And, oh, by the way, if they do end up combining, it's going to have to come back to the Senate side. Do you vote against your own bill at that point? We're talking with Senator Cassidy next hour. Right now, though, time for us to step outside of East Baton Rouge Parish. It is time for the Outside In. We're going to start off in West Baton Rouge Parish, where 2 people were shot at Hubbins Supermarket during the day Sunday. Port Allen Police Department said 2 females both suffered non-life-threatening injuries. That, by the way, is all the information we had as of, as of the start of the show this morning. A driver was killed in a single vehicle crash Saturday afternoon in Tangipahoa Parish. State troopers responded to the scene after 5 p.m. on Highway 40 at the intersection of Highway 445. According to investigators, the identified driver was traveling eastbound on Highway 40 when the car ran off the road and hit a tree. Reasons for the crash are still under investigation. The driver was pronounced deceased on the scene. A toxicology sample was taken for analysis. In Livingston Parish, the Denham Springs Housing Authority is paying $1 million for a new location to rebuild after their complex was destroyed in the 2016 flood. The site is located on 19 acres on State Highway 190, where a local church was going to be built. Homeowners and the city council did not approve of the first proposed location. The city annexed then rezoned the new site so the housing complex can be built. With $15 million already allocated to build, construction of the project is expected to start before the end of the year, with some residents moving by late next year. Oh, let's head down I-10 to close out. Proof of vaccination. Proof of vaccination goes into effect in New Orleans today. Places you're going to have to show proof includes gyms, sports complexes, stadiums, including the Superdome, concert venues, music halls, adult performance venues, where COVID's probably the 5th thing you have to worry about, and casinos. Mayor LaToya Cantrell said showing proof is a better option than capacity restrictions. If you're not vaccinated, you'll have to show a negative COVID test in order to get in. I don't know what the turnaround time is on that test.
I think it's 72 hours.
Is it 72?
Like within 72 hours.
I read it. I didn't copy.
That's what they said. That's what they said with the Saints. So
okay.
Well,
similar. Let's hope that plays out. Here comes CBS News.
Protect your retirement. Visit safemoneyplan.net. It's 8 o'clock.
WBRB, Baker, Baton Rouge, 98.1 HD. Talk 107.3 FM.
This is crazy. This little kids trading mask meme got 750 shares.
I mean, the second you said it, I thought it was something.
It's just that simple. Like,
yeah, it's like immediately, it's like it clicks. It's like
yeah. This is what reality is. This is what we deal with out, in the world.
I mean,
where did you get those shoes from? Those aren't. I bought you good shoes. Whose shoes are these? Roy's. God.
They're mine now.
No, you're trading back tomorrow. But I like these. I can't get mad. He trades up. He's going to be one hell of a fantasy football player. Just put that anywhere. texting or messaging back and forth with a friend of mine over the weekend who is like probably the most liberal friend I have. And he still believes the vaccination thing is like a party lines thing, blaming Donald Trump for everything under the sun. And I'm like, if you're not seeing that Republicans are pro-vaccine, you just choose not to want to see it at this point. There's got to be a certain point where you say some things are bigger than political party. Where we're at right now with this is one of those. Yes, there are outliers who are still calling this thing a plandemic.
They do.
Oh, thank you. Such a dad joke. I saw a comedian on TikTok the other day said I was listening to a conspiracy theory show on satellite radio, and they were talking about flat earthers and how the earth is really flat. And it occurred to me, I'm listening to a show about flat earth on satellite radio. It's vaccination information.
Big death day.
Oh, I
It's
haven't
the
even
best
looked.
death day we've ever had.
Is it?
Yep.
It's a good day for death.
It is a good day for death.
Reported into the bottom of this well.
Reported into this hallway closet that I recorded this in. Not just any club, like
Yeah.
just any club.
Yeah.
Like there needs to be like a Mitch drink next to me with like strobe lights.
Totally.
Triggering some epileptic fit.
.805 Talk 107.3 FM WBRP Mornings with Brian Haldane rolling right along. Coming up this hour, we're going to talk with our coroner, Dr. Beau Clark, about COVID deaths, about opioid deaths. I mean, it's been all COVID all the time, right? But the opioid crisis is worse than ever. We'll talk about that and a few other things at 8:15. 8:35, Senator Bill Cassidy hops on board. Let's talk about this $1.2 trillion infrastructure package and what happens now that it's out of the Senate's hands. What can he do other than just sit back and wait? And if it comes to it, does he end up voting against his own bill when it gets back over to the Senate? That's all coming your way later on this hour. We do, however, start this hour with Taylor taking us back in time with This Day in History.
It is time for This Day in History. We start in the year 1501. Seems like just yesterday.
It really does.
Michelangelo awarded the contract to create his statue of David.
Really? All this time, I had no idea he was the lowest bidder.
He was. 1898, Edwin Prescott patents the roller coaster.
Okay, that explains one of what today is, what the national days. Yeah. All right.
Fun fact, not many people know this. Edwin Prescott, Dak Prescott's great-grandfather.
I don't believe that.
That part may or may not be true.
I was going to say.
1904, New York City begins building Grand Central Station.
Okay. That's one of those ones you just assume was there when we moved in.
Yeah, it was always here. A. Chapman is hit in the head by New York Yankees pitcher Carl Mays. He dies the next day in the only Major League-related death up to that point.
Really? Up to that point. No foreshadowing there.
1954. American brand management company Authentic Brands Group first publishes sports magazine Sports Illustrated.
25 cents. 25 cents was the price tag.
1965. Sticking with the football theme or sports theme. American Football League's 9th franchise is officially awarded to Joe Robbie and television star Danny Thomas. The Miami Dolphins.
Nice. I like it.
2009.
They would go on not too long after that to have the best season in NFL history and then be the worst people because they would just follow teams until they lost.
It's true. 2009.
That's a big jump ahead.
Usain Bolt of Jamaica edges American Tyson Gay to win the 100-meter in world record time of 9.58 seconds in Berlin.
Okay.
You ready for some birthdays?
Yeah, why not?
Let's knock them out. Madonna, 63 years old today.
Really?
You know Madonna's last name?
Oh, yeah, I do.
Don't. I was just wondering.
No, shoot. I would know it if you didn't ask. Darn it.
All right, that settles it. It's Williams. Steve Carell, 59 years old today. Angela Bassett, 63.
All right.
Director James Cameron, 67 years old. Jace Robertson, Monroe's own from Duck Dynasty, 52 years old today.
Ciccone or Ciccone.
That was actually my second guess. It was Williams, if not that, Ciccone.
Yeah.
Rumor Willis, 33 years old.
Oh, yeah?
And NFL Hall of Famer Frank Gifford, born on this day in 1930. Deaths.
Wait, I thought we had one. Oh, I didn't get the last page. All right.
Elvis Presley died on this day in 1977.
Yes, he did.
Babe Ruth died on this day in 48.
All right.
And Aretha Franklin in 2018.
Wow, you weren't kidding. This was a big day.
Wasn't kidding. National days. It's Cupcake Day.
Uh-huh.
It's National Airborne Day. It's National Bratwurst Day. National Roller Coaster Day in honor of Old Man Prescott.
Old Man Prescott? What is he, a bad guy in Scooby-Doo?
No, he's Dak Prescott's great-grandfather.
Old Man Prescott in the abandoned amusement park?
Dak just calls him Pops.
Uh-huh.
But
I would have gotten away with it, too.
National Rum Day.
Yes, which goes well with roller coasters.
It does, especially when you're building them. Stay home with your kids day.
I wish I'd known.
It's Surveillance Day.
Wait. How is it stay home with you? We're 1 week into school.
It's Stay Home with Your Kids Day.
No,
I didn't
come
create
on.
these days.
No,
Do not
come
get
on.
mad at me.
That is just an ill-timed day.
Surveillance Day.
Okay.
And True Love Forever Day.
You're darn right it is.
And that is your This Day in History.
I greatly appreciate it. We've got a lot of ground to cover this hour. We are going to talk with Dr. Beau Clark in our next segment. Got 60 seconds before we take that break, though. Enough time for me to tell you about the folks over at the Baton Rouge Mattress Outlet. Labor Day sales are on the way very, very shortly. However, I was scrolling through Facebook and saw a comment posted, a rating by Simone, who says, Baton Rouge Mattress Outlet, great service and so very nice. Also, quick delivery. I highly recommend them and will purchase all future mattresses from them. You know where to find them? 4065 Florida Boulevard or 18181 Jefferson Highway. That's the corner of Jefferson and Hoosier 2. If you want to take advantage of that same great service, if you want to take advantage of those same great deals, if you want to take advantage of not only great delivery, but free delivery, if you mention you heard about it right here on Talk 107.3, you could swing by either the Mid-City location or the corner of Jefferson and Hoosier 2. What kind of deals are on the way? Well, I can tell you right now they've got a 10-inch queen hybrid mattress plus the adjustable base for $699. I can also tell you they've got 12-month interest-free financing no matter what you spend, 24-month if you spend $1,500 or more. Again, mention you heard about it here, and you get free delivery. 4065 Florida Boulevard or the corner of Jefferson and Hoosier 2 for the Baton Rouge Mattress Outlet.
Talk 107.3. Yes, sir. Give us about 2 minutes.
Haldane here. Let's talk for just a second about what sets Go Slim Nutrition apart from every other diet out there. First of all, it's not just a diet, it's adopting better lifestyle choices. But what really makes the difference for me is the accountability. Weighing in every single week, talking about what I've done right, what I've done wrong, how I can do better.
Yeah. Eight 14, Talk 107.3 FM at WBRP. Hour 3 of Mornings with Brian Haldane, rolling right along. It's been a minute since we've caught up with our coroner. It's been all COVID all the time, and his office has been busy because of that, but his office has been busy for a number of different reasons, so I figured it was time we got caught up. Dr. Beau Clark joins us this morning. Dr. Clark, how are you?
Hey, good morning. I'm doing well, thanks.
Glad to have you on here this morning, although there's the news is never good when you're on, but nonetheless, I appreciate the time and the access and the information that is to come. I want to talk about opioid deaths in a little bit, but I've got to start off with COVID. What has your office seen in recent weeks and months because of the Delta variant?
So we're up to have 340 deaths this year. You'll remember last year in 2020 we had 549 deaths. So we're probably on pace for having a similar year in 2021 as we did in 2020. I guess the big difference is the fact that 2021 we actually have a vaccine that, in our opinion, as the medical community, certainly could mitigate some of these numbers we're seeing.
It could, which could definitely slow down the rate for the back half of the year or the back third of the year, however you want to break it down by the time folks get both shots. In the meanwhile, though, what is it you're seeing when it comes to the deaths? Are they same demographics as 2020, or have things changed as far as who COVID is killing?
So they've changed slightly. In 2020, we saw it affecting the older population. And when I say older, probably 70, 80, and some of the nursing home population. Mm-hmm. It seems to have shifted now, and what we're seeing this year is that the number is going down. Certainly hitting folks in their 40s and 50s. We've even seen people in their 30s. However, there's still the common factor that most people that we see do have comorbidities. And those that we've talked about in the past, of course, are being overweight or obese, having high blood pressure, diabetes, and sometimes even lung disease. So, it's a combination of all these things put together. And then, of course, the individual's ability to handle the virus. And we all do that a little bit differently. Some people can succumb to a virus very rapidly. Others have the ability to fight it. And so I think we've got to look at all the tools that are in our toolbox to protect ourselves with a vaccine, and certainly, protect the community. And I think if we started, really looking at that seriously, then we could potentially get ourselves out of this problem.
What's the youngest? How young has it gotten?
32 is the youngest we have on record as of last week. I don't know if that's changed in the course of the week. We basically, because of the volume and the number of cases, not only just in COVID, but in other things, we've started to really analyze our statistics weekly. So that'll be one of the jobs for today, is to go back and look at what the differences is. But 32 as of a week ago.
Baton Rouge's coroner, Dr. Beau Clark, is our guest. We're talking a little bit about COVID-19 first, and we'll get to opioids in a little bit. But I do want to reset the table. In fact, every time we have you on during the pandemic, I want to reset the table with misinformation gets out there so quickly when it comes to this pandemic. So if you would, please, what constitutes a COVID-related death?
So I classify COVID-related deaths, and it's based on three criteria. Number one, you have the presentation of a respiratory illness, which COVID is. So cough, congestion, shortness of breath, hypoxia, or low oxygen levels. We follow that with a positive COVID test. So you actually have to scientifically prove that it's COVID, because there are other things that can cause those symptoms. Mm-hmm. And then lastly, your death has to be directly a result of the respiratory illness, meaning you can't get in a car wreck. And if you're in a car wreck and die from a car wreck and you happen to be COVID positive, it is not considered a COVID death. And so we've kept those criteria in East Baton Rouge Parish from the beginning. We've kept them very strict and very narrow, and every one that we categorize as COVID it meets those criteria.
It's been amazing to me since the beginning of this how quickly false news spreads. And I want to say there was like a story out of Tampa where a guy died in a motorcycle accident, and it was qualified as a COVID death because he had COVID. They went back and corrected the record later, but, Mark Twain says a lie can get halfway around the world before the truth gets its pants on.
Sure, of course, absolutely, absolutely. And I mean that's the power of social media and the internet and everything that exists today. it just moves this information, whether true or false, moves very fast.
I think that third point, though, is probably the biggest factor right there, though, is it has to be, like, the cause of death has to be attributable to those symptoms. What kind of examples are we seeing? I hate to get too gruesome about it, but what kind of examples are we seeing that are the actual cause?
Meaning that cause COVID?
No, that cause death.
Yeah, so COVID death would technically officially be classified as something we call acute respiratory distress syndrome, which is a syndrome when the lungs don't function like they should, causing hypoxia or low oxygen levels. This is usually a result of a pneumonia, and the pneumonia pattern of COVID is very specific. It's something we call interstitial pneumonia because of the area of the lung that is affected. And of course, the positive COVID test tells you that the pneumonia came from the virus. Right. And so we put all that together to come to that final conclusion, as opposed to other natural disease processes like cancer, would be completely different in that circumstance.
How much communication or networking or collaboration is there from coroner to coroner? Do you speak with others about how you're handling things and how they're handling things?
So in Louisiana, we have the Louisiana State Coroner Association, which I'm the president of for another couple of months. I've been the president for a couple of years now. And so, yes, we do communicate in Louisiana. Now, every state in the country has different systems and different ways they set up their coroner or medical examiner offices. So I can't speak to much what happens in other states. But in Louisiana, I think we're pretty consistent across the board.
He is Coroner Dr. Beau Clark. Okay, got to shift gears here because it seems that the opioid crisis continues to worsen. Where are we at with overdose and/or opioid deaths this year?
So about halfway through the year, we're at 169 overdose deaths. You'll remember last year, 2020, we had 242. Mm-hmm. So we are well on our way with having another record year. This second half of the year is what happens. What we are seeing now is almost exclusively fentanyl, illicit fentanyl, being the main culprit. And you'll remember back in 2012 when I first alerted everyone about the opioid epidemic, heroin was sweeping through our community. And then somewhere in the middle there, we saw this combo heroin, illicit fentanyl scenario. And now we're seeing almost exclusively fentanyl. And what's making it even more devastating is that people that normally do not abuse opioids, say they abuse cocaine or methamphetamine, are accidentally overdosing as a result of their cocaine or methamphetamine having illicit fentanyl in it. And so now you're starting to see the opioid epidemic affect people that normally don't abuse opioids. And so that's probably one of the main causes we're seeing these numbers continue to skyrocket.
The fact that it's fentanyl and not something that the fact that it's shifted in this regard is amazing to me because this is not a lack of awareness. Awareness campaigns are out there. I don't know why the message just isn't getting through.
Well, I mean, we have a ton of people as a result of the pharmaceutical industry pumping out all these drugs like OxyContin and whatnot, and the pill mills that have existed that are addicted to opioids. And so hopefully when these settlements begin to come through from the lawsuits and whatnot, that we can concentrate a lot on getting these individuals the help they need for their addiction. And so that they're no longer using the drug, and therefore they no longer have a chance to overdose.
Let's talk about the lawsuits and whatnot, because Baton Rouge stands to gain a pretty significant dollar amount here. What are we in line for as things stand right now?
So I'm not sure exactly what the dollar amount is for Baton Rouge specifically. As you'll know, with the lawsuits, there are many states involved. There are attorney general's offices, statewide attorney general offices, and then there's local municipalities that are involved in the suit. So eventually, it's my understanding all the money gets divvied up, and then it's a matter of when that money comes to how it comes into the state, how it is divided, and then who's in charge and what's the plan. My suggestion, if allowed to offer it, would be that we put the vast majority of it into treatment and trying to get people better, because that's how you prevent future overdoses, is that you get these people the treatment they need. What's unfortunate is that the treatment is very complex. It's not easy. we do two things. One's called medically assisted treatment, where we give you a medicine to get you physically off the drug, and that is a process and procedure and protocol. The other part is what's called CBT, or cognitive behavioral therapy. That's where we work on why your brain has a particular addiction and how we fix that. And the protocol for CBT is pretty fast. So it's not the same for every individual. Some people could need CBT for a couple of months. Some people might need it for a couple of years. And so that's where the treatment piece gets very complex. But hopefully we put our money there, because I think that's what's going to be the biggest impact for this epidemic.
How much treatment is available right now?
Well, there's not much, because there's no money for it.
Right.
Most people, I mean, even you and I, who have probably good insurance plans, don't have a very robust substance abuse piece to our insurance.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and we have insurance. Think about the individuals in our community that don't have any insurance at all, and it becomes a cash phenomenon for them, and they just can't afford it. So, once again, this money, I think, can serve that issue very well.
How much of treatment for fentanyl addiction would be different from heroin? Because, I mean, this isn't just like, sending people to a methadone clinic.
Well, so they're all opioids, and you can do the medically assisted treatment on anything in that category, but you've got to combine it with the cognitive behavioral therapy, because otherwise all you're doing is you're getting them physically off the drug, but you're not handling the psychological or the mental piece of it. So you've got to handle both to have success.
Excuse me. Caught a little bug in the throat there. East Baton Rouge Parish Coroner Dr. Beau Clark is our guest. Dr. Clark, before we get you out of here, and I do appreciate your time this morning,
Sure.
There has been a lot of attention paid to this through your office, through Hiller Moore's office, and something is evolved called the East Baton Rouge Overdose Coalition. What makes that up, and what's the mission?
So the coalition essentially is basically how we as a community and all the partners, because it really touches everybody. If you think about opioid addiction, this opioid epidemic, there are a lot of individuals involved, and the coalition is there to make sure that we're all operating and moving in one direction. And of course, the goal of the direction is to reduce the number of overdoses to zero, and then obviously get the individuals the help they need. And so, of course, my office collaborates with the district attorney's office and even the attorney general's office, and we share statistics and numbers and things we're seeing. And also our law enforcement partners, because they play an important role, from the legal and the drug trafficking side of all this. And hopefully, working together as a coalition is what will lead us to some success and get us out of the epidemic.
One tool we have in the tool belt at this point that we didn't have this time last year is the Bridge Center for Hope. How long would it take for something like that to really show up in the numbers as to its level of effectiveness for the opioid crisis?
So what's interesting is, you for the number of people in the state of Louisiana that need help, you probably can't build a facility big enough because there's just that many people. So what you want to do is you want to be as efficient with what you got. And so the Bridge Center, I think, is a step in the right direction. I think the way I would tout its success is not only what it does currently and what you see it doing, is the fact that other communities are looking at it and saying, "Man, we want one of those too." So that tells you that right there in itself of what it offers and how it can help people, and giving us another tool in the tool belt, like you said, to get people in, get them evaluated, and get them help before it's too late.
I'm still just kind of stuck on you wouldn't be able to build a facility big enough for those in Louisiana that need it. I mean, it's stark.
Yeah, that's how big this problem is. It's huge. It's huge. But it doesn't mean we're not gonna tackle it and take it one step or one bite at a time.
In the meanwhile, we always appreciate the information. We always appreciate the time. He is Coroner Dr.
Sure.
Beau Clark. Thank you so much, man. Appreciate you hopping on this morning.
Have a good day.
You too. It's tough to keep a positive outlook on something like this, just simply because the numbers are so overwhelming. And did you catch in there when you put the comparison together? The number of COVID deaths this year is double the number of opioid deaths to this point. And oh, by the way, opioid deaths are on their way to setting another record after last year set a record, after the year before that set a record. He's a busy man. I mean, there's a lot going on in that office. Also, I wanted to make a point to ask about the youngest person who has died from COVID, which 32 years old. That continues to get younger. That is not what we saw in 2020. 32 years old is way, way younger, although it is worth noting that Dr. Clark pointed out a lot of the younger deaths that we're seeing still have a lot of the same comorbidities that were a problem the first time around. Obesity, high blood pressure, hypertension, those sorts of things. So all the more reason, if you fall into one of those categories that had comorbidities before, those comorbidities are still very, very much at play this time around. 32. All right, we got to take a quick break here. When we come back, it's time to talk infrastructure package. $1.2 trillion. Sounds like a lot of money until you look across the congressional aisle and see $3.5 trillion on its tail. How do you make one happen without the other one happening? How do you get roads, bridges, broadband, and coastal restoration without having, what were they calling it? Human infrastructure? Character infrastructure? I don't even know what that is. We'll talk with Senator Cassidy about those things next. Plus, you know what? We got one more thing to go after that before we get out of here. In the meanwhile, we're coming up on news. We're going to start with CBS News. They've got the latest from Afghanistan. As the Taliban has taken things over, what is the latest? We'll check in on that. We'll get our local news, traffic, and weather and all coming your way right now on Talk 107.3 FM, the new flavor of talk. Oh, good.
Talk 107.3. Yes, sir. Give us like 2 or 3 minutes. All right, thank you.
Yes, everyone knew that. Everyone knew that. What? Eric says, at the first a year ago, they classified stage 4 cancer patient's death as COVID unless I misunderstood him last year. If I'm not mistaken, everything else doesn't matter as long as the 3 criteria he laid out were met. Like if you were stage 4 cancer, but you died of upper respiratory whatever, it still applied as COVID. I could be wrong about that too. A year ago was 10 years ago for all I'm concerned. We could have skipped this. Hey, I won't come back cold. I don't. 838 Talk 107.3 FM WBRP. No bumper music, no wasting time, diving right in because I want every second possible available with Senator Bill Cassidy, who joins us now. Senator Cassidy, good morning. Welcome back. How are you, sir?
Hey, Brian, I am fantastic. How are you?
Doing well. Glad to have you on here. We got to break this thing down into 2 parts. Number 1, controlling the controllables, and number 2, myth busting. First of all, the $1.2 trillion infrastructure bill that you've worked very hard on for a good time now is now out of your hands. It's over on the House side. What do you do now?
We got to let people understand that this is one of the best things that has happened to our state and our country in quite some time. A lot of people, for whatever reason, are trying to say we don't want money to have better roads.
Mm-hmm.
We don't want every parish in the state to have broadband. We don't want coastal restoration. And it's kind of weird to hear people say things that just aren't true as a rationale for what is a really, well, to paraphrase my Senate colleague, if you want to see the definition of stupid, look up and see, oh, yeah, I'm voting against this bill. This is an incredible bill for our state.
When it's in the House's hands, do we run the risk of Nancy Pelosi trying to pair this thing back up with the $3.5 trillion, whatever it is they're calling that monolith?
It might. It's kind of weird. People say we can't vote for this because it may help another bill pass. And then you just raise the possibility, well, the best way to help the other bill pass is just to combine them into one.
Mm-hmm.
Now we split it into 2. And we've made it less likely to pass another bill. And I say that because one of my Democratic colleagues said, $1.2 billion for infrastructure, universal broadband, flood mitigation, all the good things that are in this bill. That's the dessert. Now, the other bill is the spinach. Why am I going to eat my spinach after I've had my dessert? This is a bill which, if you flooded in 2016, there is $3.5 billion for flood mitigation so that help you not flood again.
Mm-hmm.
Now, who doesn't want, or better yet, who does want help to make sure they don't flood again? And again, why would you vote against that? That's the craziest thing in the world.
We're going to get back around to why would you vote against that in a little while. I do want to bust some myths, though, when it comes to what actually is in this bill versus not. I had a listener ask me on Twitter, I believe it was, talking about a potential mileage tax here. Are we looking at a mileage tax within this bill?
Not at all. There is a provision that says they want DOT to try and figure out what to do if we go to 100% electric vehicles, Department of Transportation, if we go to 100% electric vehicles, nobody's paying a gas tax. How do you pay for your roads? And so DOT is going to do a pilot program in which people can volunteer, but if you don't want to do it, you don't do it. And you get your gas tax back, but you do, all that sort of thing. Strictly voluntary and just trying to figure out how to finance roads in the future. Again, why wouldn't you want us to do that? Yeah, otherwise, how do we pay for our roads in 40 years? Right. But if people don't want to, I'm just so frustrated because this is our opportunity as a state to take a great leap forward, to catch up with states that have gone ahead of us, and to keep our kids here instead of moving elsewhere because we now have the economic infrastructure for their businesses to grow, and folks want to vote again. Give me another one. I want to hear another reason why
Happy to. We'll talk with Stephen Waguespack from LABI in our last hour. For a number of businesses in Louisiana teetering on the brink for the last 18 months trying to make their way through the pandemic, inflation is a very serious scare right now. What would this bill do when it comes to what would this bill's effects be on inflation?
Conservative economists and left-of-center economists agree this would not impact inflation. Why? Because all the spending is going to be not tomorrow. At the best, it's going to start maybe in some cases in 6 months, a little bit, a trickle in a year, and most of it is backloaded. Because think how long it takes to get your permit to put in a expansion of the Mississippi River Bridge. That's not going to happen in 6 months, just not. Infrastructure takes time to build, time to permit. By the way, there is permitting reform, by the way. Yeah. So that which would normally take 6 years will be 2.5. But still, it will not happen soon. So that's why economists say it's all in the by and by.
A lot of pushback on this bill is about the percentage of the dollars, of the percentage of that $1.2 trillion that actually goes towards infrastructure. Your office sent out a press release last week that has just a laundry list. Would you highlight a few things within that list that show just how much money is being used for actual infrastructure and in what way?
By the way, it's a $1.2 billion bill. I've heard people say over and over again, only 23% goes for actual. Okay, that's $276 billion. Okay, keep track of what I'm about to say. You ready?
Yeah.
$110 billion for roads and bridges. $65 billion for broadband. There's $50 billion overall going for resiliency, of which $17 billion goes to the Army Corps of Engineers for issues such as coastal restoration. There is $3.5 billion going to FEMA for flood mitigation. There is about, off the top of my head, $55 billion going for sewer and water and storm drainage system upgrades. Now, where am I right now? I think I'm north of $300 billion right now. I'm just getting started. There's $66 billion to upgrade our freight rail and passenger rail systems. I think there's $39 billion. I may be a little fuzzy on that for transit systems. Now, I could keep going, but I think now I'm probably about $400 billion. So when people say that there is only 23%, either they haven't read the bill or they've made a deliberate decision not to tell the truth. Or that maybe they don't consider broadband infrastructure. I'll give it to you. Oh, by the way, there's $65 billion to harden the grid. I really like that because after the hurricane in southwest Louisiana, I flew over and I saw these great big power lines just toppled like Tinker Toys. And so there's $65 billion to harden the grid. Maybe they don't consider hardening the grid infrastructure. Or maybe they don't consider broadband in the rural, like in Point Capee Parish, infrastructure. Or maybe they don't consider flood mitigation so that Livingston doesn't flood and Ascension doesn't flood infrastructure. To me, it's kind of infrastructure.
You were at 412.5, and I don't believe you'd gotten to the airport improvements as part of that yet.
$25 billion for airport improvements. I could keep on going. My gosh.
No.
$9.5 billion for ports and waterways.
The list your office sent out last week it runs 2 full pages basically, and I mean it is very, very comprehensive. And yeah, I guess if you wanted to whittle it down to say what is and is not infrastructure, but at the same time though, you're opening yourself up to the argument that the $3.5 trillion is creating whatever human infrastructure actually is.
Well, human infrastructure. By the way, there's no social programs in this. I had a guy I really respect. He emailed me last night. Hey, man, does this have social infrastructure, so-called? said no, period, end of story. No social programs. Well, maybe you can dig up something. Oh, that looks like a social program to me. Well, maybe it does. But I can tell you, of what we're talking about, if you could, I'm not sure you could, it's going to be like, a freckle on your back. And so I'm not really sure where people are coming from on that. And about the other bill, Mitch McConnell, who is the Republican leader of the U.S. Senate, smartest Republican it is in terms of what works for us and what doesn't, in my mind, says that passing this bill makes it less likely to pass the social infrastructure bill. Mitch McConnell, the smartest guy, says he thinks it makes it less likely.
Let's talk about the worst case scenario here, and that would be that somehow the two bills get combined on the House side. I got to ask you point blank. You've got a lot of sweat equity in this one. If these two get combined and it comes back across to your side, do you end up voting against your own bill?
Yeah, it fails on the Senate side.
Yeah,
absolutely. Because if it combines, by the way, you point out that the only way it may be the only way she passes the bigger bill in the House is if she combines the two. Again, we split them. You're kind of accepting kind of the rationale of Mitch McConnell. You split them, it makes it less likely. Okay, you got to make it more likely you combine them again. It fails in the Senate if she combines it.
Yeah, I mean, you recombine them, and instead of getting yes on one and no on another, you just get no on both.
Now, by the way, they may try and do it through reconciliation, in which case it's a party line vote. But if there's a bipartisan majority required, it ain't going to happen. And I think that Sinema and Manchin, the two Democratic senators who are the most moderate, seem to be less likely to vote for the $3.5 trillion. If it is, if it gets any bigger, they're going to vote against it, and that would include, I gather, if they try to combine it with the infrastructure bill.
One more before I get you out of here. We got about a minute and a half left with Senator Bill Cassidy, and that's paying for this thing.
Yeah, so two things about that. First, we always said that half of it CBO would accept or pay for, and half they wouldn't, but we still think they're true. So, for example, there's $53 billion that Congress appropriated that states did not use for federal unemployment supplemental payments. We take that $53 billion, which is already out the door, and we repurpose it. I like to tell people that instead of paying people not to work, we're making it worth the while to work, because there's going to be hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of direct and indirect jobs created by this program. If you're driving to work right now and you're thinking, man, I wish I could make a little bit more, my gosh, I wish I had a better job, this is going to create hundreds of thousands of jobs. So that leads to the second thing, is that Wharton School of Business did an analysis that the economic growth caused by this and the taking care of the strangleholds in our economy, think the Mississippi River Bridge at rush hour, will actually increase over 30 years, increases the size of the economy and decreases the debt. So in two different ways, we say we think we have it paid for. And by the way, the person driving to work right now wanting to make more money, they would agree with that logic too, I believe.
I would imagine so, and they got plenty of time to think about it, because right now it's, 45 minutes from Jubin to airline. I mean,
oh, my gosh.
You're talking about a captive audience. He is Senator Bill Cassidy. Hey, I know you're going to be sweating this one for a little while until it comes back around to y'all's side. I appreciate the work you put in, and I appreciate the time you've shared with us.
Thanks, Brian.
All right, thank you. We'll talk to you soon. Senator Bill Cassidy. It's a lot of ground to cover. We will do our best to break it down as it continues to move forward. Right now, though, we got to stop. Your Money Now, coming your way, right here on Talk 107.3. Boy, I got into it over the weekend about this bill. Yeah. The fact that it keeps getting muddled with the $3.5 trillion bill is baffling to me. But at the same time, though, it's baffling to me, and it's completely expected. I mean, if you're anywhere near the column of jaded, that's totally where your mind's going to go. The two will get combined on the House side, and $5 trillion will get snuck through the back door on a party line vote, like he said. It's going to come through on reconciliation. It's going to come through on a party line vote. A lot of eyes are going to be on Senator Cassidy if it comes through on a party line vote, to see if he votes against his own bill. Crap. I got to go back and listen to that again. Did I screw up right there? I asked him if he was going to vote no on his own bill. And he said it'll die in the Senate. He said it'll die in the Senate unless it comes to a reconciliation vote, in which case it'll be straight party lines. Yep. Okay, never mind. I didn't screw up. He said it'll be direct party lines. He didn't say no. It's like the first word out of his mouth for that question should have been no. Or will you vote against your own bill? Yes. Should be the first word out of his mouth. Not talking to me about Mitch McConnell's intellect. Do I have more than a minute here? All right, I'll be right back. Yes, if it comes through on reconciliation, it'll get rejected on straight party lines. That means he is a Republican. He will give a no vote. That's all that can mean. All right. Hey, John Bell cut 2. Yup. Yeah, please. Hey, YouTube, immediately after the show, we have to depart. We got to depart because we have our Monday morning meeting. Happens at 9 o'clock every Monday. That's why they call it the Monday morning meeting. It's on Teams. If you don't have the Teams app yet, you got to get it. Well, I'll have it open on my side. Yeah. Yeah, it's amazing how nobody takes the meeting seriously when they're not live. We're not in person. We're all in 100 places at that point. All right, I need something fun to do this afternoon on Jay Ducote show. What do we want to do? Stuart. Condon's Countdown. That's what I'm going to start calling it. I like it too. It came to me over the weekend. I was like, I really don't want to rehash 2 full segments. Well, 3 with this one, but 2 full segments of sound bites from a Friday press conference 72 hours later. Yeah. You didn't see who, huh? Male, female, tall, short, skinny, fat, old. All right. 856 Talk 107.3 FM WBRP. Hey, thanks again to everybody who's hopped on board today. Condon getting the week rolling with what I'm hoping can turn into a regular weekly thing. I mean, you want to talk about get the juices flowing early on Monday morning. Richard Condon at 6:35 was a lot of fun. Also, of course, Dr. Brett Hutchinson for Medical Monday. Stephen Waguespack from LABI. We had Coroner Dr. Beau Clark and Senator Bill Cassidy. Just a full slate of guests today. It's all available on demand at talk1073.com if you want to go check it out later on. Also, after the show's over with, you can still watch it on YouTube. We are available on YouTube at any time. We run the show live, and then, boop, it's there for good after that. You can check us out there. If you do and you like what you see, feel free to subscribe. You can hop in and join us every single morning. Plenty of interaction on the YouTubes, as it were. We've got two more topics to cover before we get out of here today. One's fun and one's more serious. I don't know which one we're going to start with here. I guess I should be responsible since the beginning of the week. Go with the serious one. There is a new incentive program on the way when it comes to COVID vaccines. The governor announced it on Friday. It's called Shot at 100. What does it do?
Today I'm announcing a brand new vaccine reward program. It'll be Shot for 100, where we're going to give $100 to the first 75,000 college students who get vaccinated at participating institutions of higher education. This is incredibly important as school resumes because 18 to 29-year-olds, and you're going to see this with Dr. Cantor in just a few minutes, and you've seen it before over the previous weeks, a huge percentage of our cases and transmission are being driven by people in this age group, and quite frankly, it's one of the lowest age groups in terms of the percentage that are actually vaccinated. So this is really important as school gets started up again and people travel back to Louisiana or from wherever they have been in order to start the fall semester.
Okay, so a couple questions here. Number one is, who keeps track of the vaccination numbers for students in Louisiana that are from out of state? Does that count for our tally on the 18 to 29-year-olds or their home state's tally? Or does it depend on where they got vaccinated? Number two is, what happens with everybody who's already gotten vaccinated because they believe it was the right thing to do? It's a question that's going to keep on coming up, and it's going to haunt us because those who act quickly are... Your reward is that you got the vaccine. That's awesome. I want my $100. I'm like the paper boy from the movie Better Off Dead, except it's $100, not $2. Taylor has no idea what that movie is.
No, but I know what a paper boy is. That's about all I got from that.
Seriously, you know what a paper boy is?
That's all I got from that quote.
All right. You got to see the movie. It's John Cusack, early John Cusack. He's fantastic. Hey, before I get out of here, I got a public service announcement for the folks at Walk-Ons. WBRZ posted up a story on Friday. Locally founded sports bar and restaurant Walk-Ons is looking to reward those same athletes that are at the center of their foundation. Walk-Ons owner and founder Brandon Landry is looking for college walk-ons, athletes who are not on scholarship. He's going to throw them some NIL dollars. You know who I'm spitting out here. Jack Mashburn. Get it done. All right, Fox News Rundown's coming up next. What? I don't get St. Paul's guys in the limelight ever.
Richard, why are my shoulders